Chapter 1877. Wow, there are quite a few beauties, Song Xiaodao said excitedly. I wonder if there are any from our department. All right, stop looking. Bai Weidua patted Song Xiaodao, who was looking left and right, and said, Don't think about it. There's only one girl in our entire department. Pfft. No way. Song Xiaodao retracted his gaze, depressed. It can't be the one with Boss Lin, right? That's right. Bai Weidua shrugged. Can't help it. Big brother told me yesterday that there's only one girl in our department. Oh my god, it can't be? Zhao Xingji said, also depressed. But I heard that there are students who want to transfer over, but I'm afraid it's not a girl, Bai Weidua said. Forget it, I'll look further and go to other departments, Song Xiaodao said helplessly. When they arrived at room 1109, the people in the room were clear at a glance. There were only a few dozen people, and the first 2 rows weren't full. Wang Xinyan, on the other hand, sat alone in the 3rd row, flipping through the book in her hand. She didn't say a word, just like the first time Lin Yi saw her, quiet and calm. The boys in the first 2 rows would turn around to peek at Wang Xinyan from time to time, but none of them had the nerve to talk to her. Boss Lin, let's go over? Song Xiaodao smiled and pointed at Wang Xinyan's seat. Lin Yi didn't want to go over, but seeing the 3 guys in the room, all of them had a natural look in their eyes. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He was afraid that if he didn't go over, it would seem abnormal to them. Instead of deliberately hiding it, it was better to be open. Anyway, if Bai Weidua and the others weren't here, Lin Yi might choose to sit next to Wang Xinyan. After all, Wang Xinyan was the only person he was familiar with here. Lin Yi and the others walked over and sat in the 3rd row. Lin Yi sat next to Wang Xinyan. The others, on the other hand, sat in the row beside Lin Yi. This was a small classroom with 3 rows of desks. 3 desks together made a total of 9 desks. Wang Xinyan sat by the window, but she sat in the middle, not the innermost seat. There was only 1 seat left, and Lin Yi sat down. The others could only sit at the side. Xinyan paused, frowning as she looked up. It was Lin Yi. She blushed. You. Well, you seem to be the only girl here? Lin Yi asked. Yeah. Xinyan smiled bitterly. That's why my roommates are all from other majors. He Mei Wei and Chai Xiaoling are studying botany, while Xiaoru's studying biochemistry. The 3 of them aren't from the same specialization? Lin Yi was a little surprised. I like this dormitory. It's actually just a patchwork of dormitories. The number of students from each major doesn't necessarily make up the number of dormitories. In the end, there will be a few extra students, and these extra students will be put into the same dormitory. I'm the only girl in our major, so I'm with them, Xinyan explained. I see. Lin Yi nodded, and as the 2 were talking, the classroom that was buzzing with whispers suddenly quieted down. It was the first time everyone in the classroom met. Although they were familiar with each other's dormitory, it was the first time they met the others, and they were introducing themselves. The sudden silence meant that something must have happened. Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan raised their heads as well. They saw a blonde and a purple-haired guy clearing the way in front of them, and a big bald guy swaggered into the classroom. He was as arrogant as he could be. He looked like a playboy from ancient times who brought 2 servants to cause trouble on the streets. A strange look passed through Lin Yi's eyes when he saw this person. Was he also a medical student? Xinyan, on the other hand, was startled. She wasn't unfamiliar with this person. It was because of this person that Lin Yi had a conflict with during the college entrance exams for her. This person was Tiger Wright. Tiger Wright's image was terrible to begin with, and with the blonde and purple hair guys around him, the students in the classroom naturally felt a sense of fear. They didn't understand why these 3 gangsters would suddenly appear in the classroom. Tiger Wright was very satisfied with the sudden silence in the classroom. He walked up to the podium and said, Let me introduce myself, I'm Tiger Wright. When the teacher comes to choose the class monitor, vote for me and you'll benefit. If not, haha. The students didn't want to be threatened by these gangsters right at the start of school, but these 3 clearly weren't good people, so they obediently shut their mouths. No one dared to talk back. Blonde, send out the red packets. Tiger Wright said to the blonde. Yes. The blonde nodded and walked down with a box of red packets. He placed it in front of the first student in the first row. The student understood Tiger Wright's intention, but he didn't dare take the red packet recklessly. He stood there, not knowing what to do. Fuck, just take the red packet if it's given to you. I'm giving you face, but you don't want it? The blonde glared, and the student quickly took out a red packet from the box. After that, the blondie walked in front of the other students one by one. At present, these students had just gotten to know each other and had not joined forces yet. Naturally, no one dared to resist the blondie alone. Seeing that someone had taken the red packet, they naturally followed suit and took the red packet one by one. When the blonde walked in front of Lin Yi, he clearly froze. He didn't think that Lin Yi would be in the classroom at all, and Lin Yi was sitting in the third row. He didn't stand out at all. Now that he saw Lin Yi, he froze. Lin Yi looked at the blonde with a faint smile, but he was very suspicious. Why did Tiger Wright spend so much effort to choose a class monitor? Logically speaking, the children of the hidden aristocratic families came to school here with the attitude of playing around, but he actually cared about the position of a class monitor. This really made Lin Yi feel a little strange. It should be known that being a class monitor in a university wasn't a very good job. It was like being the dorm leader. It was a job that was responsible for communicating with the tutors, lecturers, the student council, and the students in the class. To put it bluntly, it was a hard labor with no salary. Of course, the reputation was very good, and it was also a kind of training for one's organizational skills. It was also quite beneficial for one's job. However, what use did Tiger Wright have for such a position? The school bell's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full text. Chapter 1878. He wants to be the class monitor? Lin Yi looked at the blonde and asked. At this time, Wright Coiling Tiger also saw Lin Yi, and he secretly complained in his heart. Motherfucker, what is called enemies on a narrow road? This is really strange. Yesterday, I met Lin Yi, but today I actually saw Lin Yi, and he is in the same class as me. How am I going to live in the future? Right now, the Wright family's attitude toward Lin Yi was very cautious. Since the Zhao family's Earth Stage late stage master couldn't do anything to Lin Yi, what other tricks did the Wright family have? They couldn't possibly send a Heaven Stage master, right? Even if the Wright family wanted to, the ancient families wouldn't agree. Although the Heavenly Elixir sect was strong, it wasn't something that could be decided by themselves. Yes, Lin Yi, as long as you vote for me, I will reward you in the future. Since Wright Coiling Tiger couldn't do anything to Lin Yi, he could only choose to temporarily endure. We don't get to know each other without fighting. How about we be friends? Okay, then I will vote for you. As Lin Yi said this, he snatched the cardboard box from the blonde's hand. There were no less than 20 red envelopes in it. Obviously, Wright Coiling Tiger prepared more. The blonde saw Lin Yi swallow the red envelopes, and he was suddenly stunned. This row is all my friends. I will ask them to vote for him later. Lin Yi pointed to Bai Weituo and the others. That is good. The blonde didn't dare to argue with Lin Yi, so he let go of his hand resentfully. Lin Yi put the cardboard box on Bai Weituo's table and said, Take it back. This is a token of their appreciation. If we don't take it, they will lose face. Wright Coiling Tiger was relieved when he got Lin Yi's guarantee. To be honest, he wasn't interested in being the class monitor, but his family valued it very much, and he also knew the significance of this medical major. To be able to set up such a strange major in the science and engineering college, and to be able to do it with only a few people, the power behind this person could not be underestimated. And this person. He was also a person respected by the Yu family. If Yu Panhu could successfully graduate here, he would receive guidance from that person and inherit the position of the Yu family's family head. Ahem. I say, are you trying to replace me by standing on the podium? Do you want to be a lecturer for our medicine department? An old man walked into the classroom and saw Tiger right on the podium. He smiled and made a humorous joke. Although Wright Coiling Tiger was domineering, when he saw this person, he acted like a mouse that had seen a cat. He nodded and bowed. Old Bai When the old man heard how you coiling tiger addressed him, he frowned slightly and said, "This is a school. Call me Professor Bai, or add the word teacher and call me Teacher Bai." The people who came in. This was Bai Weitua's grandfather. Lin Yi had long known this identity. It wasn't too surprising. When he had saved the old man had said that he would teach him medical knowledge. However, Lin Yi didn't think much of it at that time. He didn't expect that the old man was actually a professor here. However, this news had been known for 2 days, so Lin Yi wasn't surprised. However, Tiger Wright's respectful look and address made Lin Yi a little curious. Tiger Wright and Bai Weitua's grandfather? What was their relationship? Could it be that they had a close relationship? With this thought, Lin Yi's face was a little gloomy. He and Bai Weitua were undoubtedly very good friends. If the Yu family and Bai Weitua's family had a relationship, then it would be very difficult for Lin Yi to be in the middle. However, when he saw Bai Weitua's eyes, Lin Yi realized that he didn't seem to know Tiger Wright at all.
He was relieved.
It seemed that although Tiger Wright knew Bai Weitua's grandfather, he probably wasn't very familiar with him. "Yes, Professor Bai, then I will go down." With that said, Tiger Wright brought the purple hair and the yellow hair to the back of the classroom and sat in the 3rd row near the door. His good attitude was beyond Lin Yi's expectations. This Tiger Wright actually respected his teacher so much. "Hello, students. I am your professional tutor and the only tutor. In layman's terms, I am the boss in our professional field. What I say counts." Bai Weitua's grandfather walked to the center of the podium and introduced himself humorously. "My name is Boss Bai. I have already said it just now. I am the boss here."
Huh?
The students in the audience were suddenly stunned. They didn't expect a teacher to call himself the boss, and he did it so openly. Don't doubt it. This old man's name is Boss Bai. Bai Weitua's grandfather laughed and said, "Every batch of students will be very surprised when they hear this name, but this is the truth. Among you, Bai Weitua is my grandson. He can prove that my name is real." Huh? The students in the audience finally couldn't help but laugh. It could be seen that Boss Bai was a very kind old man. At least, he wasn't as rigid as some teachers. However, in reality, they didn't know that although Boss Bai looked cheerful, he was actually a very strict person. Bai Weitua knew this very well. "Alright, there is only one class in our professional field, and there are only a dozen or so of you in the class. As for the class monitor, there is no need to hold any election. I will just randomly appoint someone." Boss Bai's gaze swept across the students in the room and finally landed on Lin Yi. He said, "Lin Yi, it will be you."
Huh?
Lin Yi was stunned and looked at Boss Bai in shock. How did he become the class monitor? To be honest, if it was an election for the class monitor, Lin Yi wouldn't mind voting for Tiger Wright because he had no intention of fighting for the position of class monitor. But now, Boss Bai unexpectedly didn't let everyone in the class vote. Instead, he randomly appointed himself, which surprised Lin Yi. "Lin Yi, stand up and let everyone know you." Boss Bai looked at Lin Yi with a smile. There was an indescribable playfulness in his eyes. There was excitement, joy, and a hint of schadenfreude. Lin Yi stood up helplessly. Tiger Wright frowned. He didn't expect that Boss Bai would directly appoint someone instead of letting someone run for the position of class monitor. Although there was no fixed way to elect a class monitor in a university, competitive speeches and voting had become a fixed model in most schools. According to Tiger Wright's knowledge, the other departments and majors in Donghai Industry University all elected their class monitors this way. This was also what he learned from Li Biaohan and Zhuang Niadao. That was why he used the method of giving red packets to attract students. But he didn't expect that it would be completely useless. Although he was annoyed, Tiger Wright knew that it wasn't Lin Yi's fault. Looking at Lin Yi's strange expression, it didn't seem like he was faking it. The school bell's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1879. In Right Coiling Tiger's view, there was no need for Lin Yi, a cultivator who had killed 3 Earth stage experts in one move, to lie. He didn't know, so he didn't know. The only explanation was that Boss Spy randomly assigned a person, and somehow, he liked Linny. Right, Coiling Tiger was a little dissatisfied. He didn't want to lose this opportunity to make the old man of the Yu family look up to him, so he secretly gave the blonde a look. Mr. Bai, I think we should run for class monitor, right? We are not familiar with each other, and we don't know each other if we randomly assign a class monitor. Why don't we compete to make a speech and then vote? The blonde suggested. This student, did you not hear what I said just now? I am the boss of the medical major. If you want to study here, you have to listen to me, or else I can help you transfer to another major.
You can go anywhere.
Boss Spy's face darkened, and his smiling face changed as he said coldly. This shocked the students present. This seemingly smiling old man turned out to be a smiling tiger. He turned hostile just like that. Everyone secretly wiped their sweat. Fortunately, they didn't do anything out of line before. Otherwise, they would be the ones being scolded now. The blonde shrank his head. Obviously, he didn't dare to argue with Boss Spy, and Right Coiling Tiger was a little frustrated. It seemed that his dream was shattered. Lin Yi was stunned. He originally wanted to decline, but after hearing what Boss Spy said, he had to give up the idea. Although Lin Yi saved his life, he was Lin Yi's mentor at the moment. No matter what, Lin Yi couldn't go against him. Since everyone has no objections, then I will talk about the arrangements for the freshmen after school starts. Boss Spy was very satisfied with everyone's reaction. He nodded slowly and said, "Our department is small, and we don't have so many rules. The only rule is that what I say is the rule, and what I don't say, you can do as I said. If you do it again, then I'm sorry, just wait to fail at the end of the term." Boss Spy was the only one who could threaten a student in such a way in public. After school starts, there will be military training and a party for freshmen. The military training will be held from October 11th to October 20th, a total of 10 days. The results of the military training will be counted into your credits, and you will get a total of 6 credits. Boss Spy said, "The military training is arranged by the school. I won't talk about the rules and regulations. Someone will tell you when the time comes." After the military training, it was time for the freshmen's evening party. According to the usual practice, every department and every major had to come up with a program. However, we're the smallest major in the biology department and also the smallest major in the entire school, so we can only come up with one program. However, although our department is small, I don't want you to embarrass me. After the military training, if the program is good and the results are good, then everyone will get 5 credits. If it's not good, Lin Yi was speechless. This was the first time he had heard of such a teaching method. Wasn't this mentor a little too overbearing? They would threaten students with failing courses and losing credits at the drop of a hat. However, these 2 things were especially important to university students. If one failed a course, they would have to take a makeup exam. If they failed the makeup exam, they would have to retake the course. If they did not have enough credits, they would not be able to graduate. This made everyone very depressed. However, Boss Spy said that he was in charge here. As for Boss Spy's style, Lin Yi was already used to it. Since such a small major existed, and Boss Spy's teaching method was so unique, it must have been tacitly approved by the school. Therefore, even if it was reported to the principal, there might not be any results. Okay, that's all I have to say. Everyone, go back and play. Tomorrow, the other majors have to come to the college students' rules and regulations class, but we don't have to attend it. The rules and regulations are not to be memorized, but to be followed by how you do it. 1 copy for each person, and it will be included in the teaching materials. Go back and read it carefully. Don't let me catch you in the act, or don't blame me for being ruthless. After saying that, Boss Spy looked at Lin Yi and said to him, "Class monitor Lin Yi, come to the office with me. Everyone else is dismissed." On the faces of everyone in the class, there was no one without a bitter smile. They applied for this major more or less because their families were in the pharmaceutical industry, and some elders in their families had heard of Boss Spy's reputation, so they applied for this major. Originally, they thought that the smaller the major, the easier it would be to survive, but unexpectedly, it was not the case at all. But now that they were here, they could only abide by it. If Boss Bai really transferred them to another major, no one could afford to lose face. Lin Yi shrugged and glanced at Wang Xinyan, wondering how he could transfer the position of the class monitor to her. On one hand, she seemed to be excellent, and on the other hand, she was the only girl in the class, so everyone should give her some face. Of course, if Wang Xinyan couldn't convince everyone, then Lin Yi would recommend Bai Weitua. After all, he was Boss Bai's grandson, and he was the most suitable candidate. Thinking of this, Lin Yi stood up and followed Boss Bai out of the classroom. Although Right Coiling Tiger wanted to compete for the position of the class monitor, he had to give up when he thought of Lin Yi's achievements. After leaving the classroom, Boss Bai changed his expression and said to Lin Yi with a smile, "Haha, young man, I said I would teach you medicine and take you as my disciple, but you didn't agree.
How about now?
You're my disciple again, right? Damn, I didn't know you were a tutor here." Lin Yi smiled bitterly. "Now I've fulfilled your wish." "That's true, but my original idea was to take you as my disciple and teach you some special medical skills, the kind that can't be learned in school," Boss Bai said.
Oh, what's that?
Lin Yi's heart moved slightly. To be honest, when he heard Boss Bai say these words at the entrance of the examination room, Lin Yi didn't really care. Teach him medicine? Boss Bai couldn't even cure his own illness. How could he teach him? But after seeing Right Coiling Tiger's attitude toward Boss Bai, he had a slightly different idea. Who was Right Coiling Tiger? He was the second young master of the Hidden Right family. The Hidden Right family was good at medicine and alchemy. In terms of medical attainments, he was probably not below Lin Yi and Old Lin. However, Right Coiling Tiger was so respectful to Boss Bai, which explains some problems. There's only one disciple. Otherwise, he wouldn't be called a disciple. I've already taken in a good seedling. Boss Bai glanced at Lin Yi and said with a smile, "How about it? Do you regret it now?" "It's all right," Lin Yi said lightly. How could he not know that the old man was talking nonsense? Only one disciple? There were only two, Bai Weitua and Bai Weikai. Obviously, this old man was keeping him in suspense. The school bell's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full text. Chapter 1880. But I will slowly examine your aptitude and then teach you some special things, but I don't know much about your aptitude yet, so I can only observe slowly,
Boss Bai said.
While talking, Boss Bai took Lin Yi out of the teaching building and came to the faculty building of the biology department. What Lin Yi didn't expect was that Boss Bai's workplace was actually the basement of the faculty building. And it was the whole floor. It was a bit bullying to arrange an old man to work in the basement, but giving the whole basement to Boss Bai was not bullying but taking care of him. "This floor is all yours?" Lin Yi was a little surprised and pointed at the sign on the side of the corridor that said, "Medical Office Area." "Yes, how is it? Not bad?" Boss Bai chuckled. "That's my lab, and there's also a research room and a medicine refining room." Medicine refining? Lin Yi's eyes slightly narrowed. Although Boss Bai was talking about concocting medicine, not concocting pills, the word concocting made Lin Yi's heart skip a beat. Oh, it's the place where medicine is brewed and prepared. Medicine refining is just a way of saying it. Boss Bai thought that Lin Yi didn't understand the meaning of medicine refining, so he explained. "I see." Lin Yi nodded. Boss Bai took Lin Yi into the innermost office, opened the door, and Boss Bai and Lin Yi walked in together. The office was very clean, with only a shelf, a writing desk, and a sofa. What surprised Lin Yi was that the shelf was full of thread-bound books, which seemed to be ancient manuscripts, which was somewhat similar to Old Lin's shelf.
"These are all copied by me.
Most of the ones that haven't been published are other people's medical experiences, and a small part is my own summary." Boss Bai saw Lin Yi's surprised look and explained with a smile. Lin Yi nodded deeply. It seemed that Boss Bai was indeed not an ordinary person, but last time, the meridians in his body seemed to be either destroyed or blocked. Did he not cure his own disease? But when he thought about it, he came to a realization before he started practicing the art of dragon mastery. Fighting Huaijuan would reduce his pain and extend his lifespan, but it wouldn't be able to repair his meridians and turn him back into a spiritual practitioner. Ordinary doctors couldn't do anything about it. Then, what could Boss Bai do? No matter how powerful he was, it was impossible for him to repair his meridians. Very good. There are many similar books in my old man's bookshelf, Lin Yi said frankly. You're also from a medical family? No wonder. Boss Bai was relieved to hear Lin Yi's words. No wonder Lin Yi didn't agree to be his disciple so easily. It turned out that he was also a member of a medical family. However, Boss Bai had never heard of any medical family surnamed Lin. Not exactly an aristocratic family. The old man was alone, and I was picked up by him. Oh, right, Elder Bai. What do you think I'm doing? Can I discuss something with you? Boss Bai didn't seem to object to Lin Yi calling him Mr. Bai. Instead, he said, What is it? How about letting Bai Weitua or Wang Xinyan be the class monitor? Lin Yi asked. Why should we let them? Don't you know it's a good job? Boss Bai said, At least, in terms of credits, I will give you extra points, because the student council of our major will fall on you. Bai Weitua is a graduate student and doesn't have much time left. Student council of our major will have extra credits, and a lot of them. These credits are enough for you to study a second major. That's great. Brother Xiao Kai retired, and his brother Bai Weitua will take over. Lin Yi said, To be honest, I don't have much time, and I may ask for leave often. So, I really can't be the class monitor. Ask for leave? Don't you know the rules of our major? Boss Bai narrowed his eyes and asked. Yes, I know. It said that I only need to separate and identify a bunch of medicinal materials that you make? Lin Yi said. So, you can do it? Boss Bai stared at Lin Yi with a strange light in his eyes. Lin Yi smiled. If that's all, then I think it should be possible. Okay. Boss Bai nodded and said, 2 choices, one difficult and one easy. If you pass the easy one, then you don't have to take the final exam. I will pass all of them for you, and you can also ask for leave. What about the difficult one? Lin Yi didn't hear the condition of not being the class monitor, so he continued to ask. The difficult one. If you pass it, you can appoint someone else as the class monitor. You can leave at normal times without asking for leave. Just tell me when you have time. Besides, if you pass it 4 times in a row in 4 years, I can let you graduate directly. Boss Bai stated his conditions. Okay, I choose the difficult one. Lin Yi nodded and said. Yes, the difficult one is very difficult. After so many years, no one has passed it. Think about it carefully. Boss Bai said. Yes, I have. Lin Yi nodded. Okay, I will give you a random question. After you read the question, you can change to an easier one if you don't want to answer it. But if you answer it wrong, then you won't have a chance anymore. Boss Bai said as he opened the drawer and rummaged randomly. No need, Boss Bai. You choose the question. Lin Yi said. Hee, this is it. Boss Bai took out a small box from the drawer and put it in front of Lin Yi. He smiled cunningly. This is it. Tell me, what's inside?
Huh.
Lin Yi's eyes widened. He looked at the small box on the table in disbelief, because it was a box of Miracle Dr. Guan's injury medicine. What's wrong? Scared? Boss Bai looked at Lin Yi proudly. He was very satisfied that he tricked him. Not to mention the injury medicine, which was made up of more than 10 kinds of herbs. Even if a few of them were mixed into a medicine, it would still be very difficult to distinguish the herbs. Not to mention Lin Yi's age. Even the heads of those medical families didn't have this ability. No. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He's still being stubborn? But I will allow you to make one mistake.
How about it?
Is that fair? Boss Bai smiled and said. Fair, it's extremely fair. Lin Yi was speaking from the bottom of his heart. This question was too easy for him. If that's the case, we can start. Boss Bai saw that Lin Yi didn't regret his decision, so he said angrily. This injury medicine has strictness, dragon bone, southern red flower 5 coins, chuanqiang live, crab bone, Angelica sinensis, radix parsnip, Angelica dehurica. Lin Yi slowly said the formula of the injury medicine. Chapter 1881. Although he didn't think that Boss Bai was the kind of person who would steal the formula, Lin Yi was still not familiar with him, so he didn't tell him about the other medicine. Boss Bai also said that he was allowed to make one mistake. Hearing Lin Yi's words, Boss Bai's eyes turned serious from the initial teasing. He came up with this question casually to make things difficult for Lin Yi and make him stay in school. Although Lin Yi had some medical skills, there were still many things that he didn't know. However, Lin Yi actually told him the formula of the injury medicine so casually, which made Boss Bai's eyes widen in shock. Lin Yi guessed correctly. He wasn't trying to get the formula because he didn't even know that the injury medicine was made by Lin Yi. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come up with this kind of question. He had also tried to figure out the formula of the injury medicine before. Of course, with his ability, figuring out the formula of the injury medicine wasn't a difficult thing. However, he was just curious because there was someone who could sell injury medicine at such a low price. He also had a copy of the ancient formula of the Golden Creation Medicine, and the Golden Creation Medicine produced by Dr. Kang's medical company was from this formula. However, the ingredients of this formula were extremely expensive, so Boss Bai was very confused. Miracle Dr. Guan's injury medicine was so cheap, so he either changed the formula or he was making a loss. So he studied it for a while, and then he was amazed by the person who could make this formula, who was so powerful that they actually had such a solid knowledge of medicine and could make these ordinary ingredients that couldn't be any more effective. However, even Boss Bai only came up with a complete formula after studying for many days. It was absolutely impossible for him to say it so quickly, like Lin Yi. So, Boss Bai's face changed a little, and the way he looked at Lin Yi was a little different. "Old Bai, am I right?" Lin Yi asked with a smile. "That's right." Boss Bai shook his head absent-mindedly. Then he sighed. "Although there's a missing ingredient, the rest are accurate." "Wait, that's not right. You haven't even opened the box. How do you know?" Boss Bai was so shocked that he forgot one important thing. That was Lin Yi had only been talking about the prescription without opening the box of the injury medicine. So how did he judge it? Boss Bai didn't know what Lin Yi was thinking. Could it be that he already had this prescription? Lin Yi's eyes also flashed with a trace of surprise. Boss Bai actually knew that he had missed a medicinal material? Didn't that mean that he already knew the formula for the injury medicine? Although Lin Yi had the ability, Lin Yi was confident that even Old Man Lin was no match for him. For Old Lin to be able to distinguish so carefully, he had to go through several days of speculation and analysis of the effects of various medicinal ingredients to be able to do this. However, Lin Yi had grown up in a pile of medicinal ingredients and had talent in this area, so he was able to quickly analyze the prescription. For example, the products of Dr. Kong Medical Company, but Boss Bai could do it too?
Yes.
Only Chuanxiong is missing. But how do you know? Lin Yi asked with some uncertainty. You know? How do you know? Boss Bai's eyes widened. You already had this prescription before? Of course. Lin Yi nodded, but he admired Boss Bai in his heart. Lin Yi rarely admired anyone, even Guan Xuemin. Guan Xuemin was just a friend, so there was nothing that Lin Yi admired about him. But for Boss Bai, Lin Yi really admired him. Why do you have this prescription? Boss Bai looked at Lin Yi strangely. Would you believe me if I told you that I was the one who came up with this recipe? Lin Yi asked, thinking of something. Since he had already exposed so much, he might as well expose more. By then, Boss Bai would probably not interfere if he wanted to skip classes. You. Boss Bai opened his mouth and looked at Lin Yi strangely. After a while, he nodded and said, I believe you.
Why?
Lin Yi was confused. Why did Boss Bai believe him? This kind of medicine is made of more than 10 kinds of medicinal materials. Even if we analyze it with instruments, we can't get any results. It's all based on our own sense of smell. Since you can tell me, why should I doubt you? This prescription is confidential. Boss Bai looked at Lin Yi, not knowing what he was thinking. Well, I'm just being opportunistic. Mr. Bai, can you give me another question? Said Lin Yi. Did you discover the special edition Golden Creation and the weight loss medicine of Dr. Kong Medical Company? Boss Bai, however, didn't answer Lin Yi's question. Instead, he asked another irrelevant question. This time, it was Lin Yi's turn to be surprised. Wasn't Boss Spy's thinking a little too strong? Why do you ask? Lin squinted his eyes and looked at Boss Spy. Since this prescription was made by you, then you must have a special relationship with Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. The problem with Miracle Dr. Kang's product was also discovered by Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. So, I'm afraid that it was made by one person. Only the person who made this prescription has this kind of ability, Boss Spy said. That's right. Huh? Mr. Bai, your analysis is correct. That was also discovered by me. Lin nodded quickly. It was not unreasonable for Boss Spy to guess it from this. Well, you have surprised me. It's far beyond my expectation. Boss Spy nodded slowly. So, I accept your suggestion. No more questions? Didn't you say that as long as I answer 4 questions correctly, I can graduate directly? Then, now that I have answered 4 questions, there won't be any trouble in the future, right? Lin asked. No need to answer. If I'm not wrong, the other products of Miracle Dr. Guan Medical Company are also made by you? Boss Spy laughed and said, if that's the case, my questions are easy for you. I'm a bit regretful now. I should have asked for more difficult questions. More difficult questions? Lin frowned slightly. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Boss Spy waved his hand. But, although you are very good, remember, you can learn unexpected knowledge from me. What knowledge? Lin asked curiously. It was not the first time he heard Boss Spy say this. I can't say for now. You will know in the future, Boss Spy said. Okay. I suggest Bai Weitua be the class monitor and Wang Xinyan be the vice monitor, Lin said. The campus bell's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full text. Chapter 1882. Okay, I'll listen to you. Boss Spy nodded without hesitation. Then if there's nothing else, I'll go back first, Lin said. Goodbye, Boss Spy said. Lin shrugged. This Boss Spy was really weird, especially his relationship with him. He was his savior, but Boss Spy didn't mention anything about the past. What surprised Lin even more was that Boss Spy's medical research was really good. It was no wonder that Right Coiling Tiger was so respectful towards him. There was actually such a character hidden in this little-known minor profession. After leaving Boss Spy's office, Lin didn't go back to the classroom. Instead, he went back to the dorm. Lin bro, what did my grandpa say to you? Bai Weitua saw Lin coming back and immediately went up to him. Nothing much. I recommended you to be the class leader. Let Wang Xinyan be the vice class leader. I don't have time.
Lin said directly. Ah?
No way? Then my grandpa agreed? Bai Weitua asked curiously. He agreed. Lin nodded. He really agreed? Bai Weitua froze. Although Lin saved his grandpa's life, his grandpa had been nagging at home these days that he must teach Lin well and make him his proud disciple. So, Bai Weitua wasn't surprised that his grandpa made Lin the class leader. However, it would be strange if his grandpa agreed after Lin resigned. Really? Lin nodded. That's unbelievable. Bai Weitua was a little surprised. Haha, it's okay. Lin didn't say much. There were many people in the dorm. Although they were familiar with each other, Lin didn't plan to tell them the truth. Right, Lin bro? Are you free in the afternoon? Bai Weitua asked. Afternoon? I'll ask. Lin remembered that the miss said she would monitor him for Xiao Xiao, so he texted her first. Otherwise, she wouldn't be satisfied. Meng Yao and Yushu were from the economics department. Things were not as simple as Lin Yi's pharmacy department. The economics department had a class committee competition to give a speech, the department's student council competition to give a speech, the school's student council competition to give a speech, and so on. Therefore, there was no break in the afternoon at all. In fact, there was no tomorrow. Therefore, Lin asked. The eldest miss replied straightforwardly. She had something to do in the department in the afternoon. Let Lin arrange his own time. Nothing, Lin said. This relative of yours is really a busybody. Even when you go out in the afternoon, he has to ask for permission. Isn't his girlfriend just SSO? Bai Weitua said in surprise. Ha! Lin thought to himself. He was helping his girlfriend. So it should be more or less the same, right? Well, since there's nothing else, I've asked Himeyue's dorm out. Let's go out and play in the afternoon? Zhao Xingji and Song Xiaodao were both from out of town and wanted to take a stroll. I remember that you are not from Donghai City. Well, you have relatives. Bai Weitua chattered on. I don't come here often. Lin Yi said, but Himeyue and the others also have a break in the afternoon. They don't participate in the class committee election, so there's nothing much to do. The afternoon is the time for each major to run for the class committee. Bai Weitua explained. I see. Lin Yi nodded and said, then let's go out and walk around. At 1:00 in the afternoon, in front of the number 1 teaching building of the biology department, Lin Yi, Bai Weitua, Song Xiaodao, and Zhao Xingji met Himeyue, Wang Xinyan, and Chai Xiaoling. As for Lan Xiaoru, it was said that she went on a date with her boyfriend, so she didn't have time. However, there were 2 more boys beside Himeyue. One of them was talking to Himeyue happily when Lin Yi and the others arrived. Wang Xinyan. Lin Yi greeted Wang Xinyan and walked over quickly. I say, Fan Ganha, now you see, Xinyan is already taken. You don't have much hope. Himeyue smiled and said to the other boy beside her. The boy named Fan Ganha looked at Lin Yi with a trace of hostility. When he and another boy went to the dormitory to look for Himeyue yesterday, he saw Wang Xinyan with Himeyue. At that time, he fell in love with Wang Xinyan, but when he heard that Wang Xinyan was taken, he was naturally unhappy. Fan Ganha suddenly walked in front of Lin Yi and reached out to Lin Yi. Lin Yi was slightly stunned. He didn't understand whether this guy wanted to show off or what. Although he was far away, Lin Yi still heard what Himeyue and Fan Ganha said clearly.
Lin Yi.
Since the other person was Himeyue's friend, Lin Yi didn't need to offend him. He reached out and shook hands with him, saying lightly, I will compete. Fan Ganha didn't provoke Lin Yi with his hand, only promising. I'm not Xinyan's boyfriend. I'm just familiar with her. We come from the same place. Lin Yi saw through Fan Ganha's thoughts and smiled. Fan Ganha was stunned. He didn't expect Lin Yi to say this, but he thought that Lin Yi was afraid after seeing his physique. After all, Fan Ganha was from the sports department, and he was obviously a size bigger than Lin Yi. Lin Yi looked harmless, so he shouldn't be Fan Ganha's opponent. Thinking of this, a trace of contempt flashed in Fan Ganha's eyes. Even Himeyue frowned. Before, Himeyue had a good impression of Lin Yi, but now she was looking down on Lin Yi. I say, Lin Yi, you're not going to back down, are you? Himeyue felt sorry for Xinyan. No, he's right. We're just friends, after all. Xinyan found it funny. Was Lin Yi afraid of Fan Ganha? That's because you didn't see how strong Lin Yi was. Even someone as strong as Yellow Hair got thrown out of the classroom window by Lin Yi. Xinyan wasn't from a noble house, but she'd heard about them. Uncle Pai from the Xiao family had died in Lin Yi's hands, and Pai Yongyang and Mr. Pai had been killed by Lin Yi's lackeys. She probably wouldn't think that way. But Xinyan didn't explain, because some things couldn't be said casually. That's even better. I don't have to worry about it anymore. Fan Ganha blinked before nodding. Himeyue, on the other hand, looked at Xinyan strangely. She had a preconceived notion that there was something going on between Lin Yi and Xinyan, but since both parties had denied it, Himeyue wouldn't press the issue. Meiyue, you've been waiting for a long time, right? The men's room is a bit far. Bai Weitua smiled, breaking the awkwardness as he greeted Himeyue. Meiyue, this is? The guy beside, Himeyue asked suddenly. Chapter 1883. Did the car break down? Zhang Duopan, this is Bai Weitua from our dorm. Bai Weitua, this is my high school classmate, Zhang Duopan. Himeyue introduced them. Hello. Zhang Duopan extended his hand, but his posture was a bit arrogant. He looked at Bai Weitua and said, My name is Zhang Duopan, Meiyue's high school classmate and flower guardian. Bai Weitua was stunned. Flower guardian? But then he remembered Himeiwa said yesterday that she didn't have a boyfriend, so this Zhang Duopan was most likely a pursuer who hadn't succeeded yet. Bai Weitua didn't want to be outdone. Flower guardian? I think it's probably self-proclaimed, right? Zhang Duopan's face suddenly darkened. Bai Weitua had hit his soft spot. When they were in high school, he had pursued Himeiwa, but she always rejected him with the reason that her studies were more important. Now that they were in university and they happened to be in the same school, he brought up the past again, but Himeiwa didn't respond to him directly, which made Zhang Duopan very unhappy. Are you here to pick a fight? Zhang Duopan asked coldly. I'm just speaking the truth, and I want to be your flower guardian too. Bai Weitua didn't want to reveal his intention so early. After all, picking up a girl needed to be done step by step. If he said it all at once and got rejected, there would be no room for negotiation. But slowly, with feelings, it would be much easier. But now, if Bai Weitua didn't say it, someone else would beat him to it. He could only express his position. Himeiwa pursed her lips and didn't say anything. She didn't like Zhang Duopan, but she didn't hate him either. They were like friends, so naturally, Himeiwa couldn't directly agree to his pursuit. As for Bai Weitua, Himeiwa had a good impression of him, but she was a little surprised that he wanted to pursue her on the second day they met. That's good. Having a competitor can make my fighting spirit high. Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganha were both from rich families. Fighting was common in high school, but after they entered university, they became more restrained. After all, they weren't familiar with the place and people, so they didn't dare to be too arrogant. At least, it wasn't good to be arrogant before they figured out the other's strength. Where are we going in the afternoon? Zhao Xingji tried to smooth things over. He could tell that Zhang Duopan and Bai Weitua were going to fight. Although the four of them weren't necessarily afraid of the two of them, it wasn't good for freshmen to fight. We discussed it just now and decided to go to a nearby KTV. Our department will be performing 2 programs at the freshmen's party. One of them is a solo, and Meiwa signed up for it, Chai Shaoling explained. Oh, Meiwa, you can even sing? Bai Weitua was surprised. You don't know, do you? In our high school, Meiwa was known as the Skylark. Zhang Duopan said proudly. At that time, our class's solo performance always won first place in the school. Hee, it's just a hobby. If it weren't for my family's disapproval, I would have applied for a music academy. Himeiwa shrugged and said, My parents are more conservative. They don't like me to mix in the entertainment circle. That's true. If Meiwa applied for a music academy, she would be a superstar in the future. That Su Shirhan wouldn't be her opponent, Zhang Duopan said casually. He originally wanted to praise Himeiwa, but he regretted it after saying it. Because Himeiwa's idol was Su Shirhan. Wasn't saying that Su Shirhan wasn't good? As expected, Himeiwa's face changed slightly. She said indifferently, I'm far from Su Shirhan. I'm just an amateur. I was just saying it casually. Zhang Duopan said awkwardly. Su Shirhan is indeed amazing. Not only is she beautiful, but her songs are also very nice. I like her too. Bai Weitua wasn't stupid. He immediately saw through Himeiwa's thoughts. But in fact, he did like listening to Su Shirhan songs. Most young people liked Su Shirhan. You like Su Shirhan too? Himeiwa's eyes lit up. Yeah, I can sing some songs too. Bai Weitua nodded. Okay, then let's sing together later. Himeiwa said happily. This made Zhang Duopan's face turn ugly. He suggested to go to KTV naturally to practice with Himeiwa. He didn't have any talent in singing. Saying he was tone deaf was already flattering him. Even if he went to rap, he wouldn't be able to remember the lyrics. He didn't expect Bai Weitua to talk about his disadvantage. Zhang Duopan laughed and changed the topic. Let's go, we'll go now. Right, I drove here, but it can only seat 5 people. You guys take a taxi? Zhang Duopan didn't want to drag Bai Weitua even if he had a car. Besides, a car could only seat 5 people. Himeiwa's dorm room had 3 people. Including him and Fan Ganha, it was no more and no less. As he said that, Zhang Duopan took out a car key from his pocket and said, It's so convenient to have a car now. Bai Weitua humphed coldly at Zhang Duopan's bragging. Although Zhang Duopan was obviously mocking them, the car could seat 5 people. He couldn't find anything wrong with it. Wang Xinyan, on the other hand, wanted to say something but stopped herself. She actually had a car, but she wasn't the kind of person who liked to show off. Her car was a sports car, and it was quite eye-catching. She hadn't moved it since yesterday. It wasn't good for a girl to be too flamboyant, so she said, "You guys take the car, I'll accompany them. Otherwise, they won't be able to find the KTV. The KTV was found last night when Wang Xinyan's dorm went shopping. It wasn't far from here, but it wasn't close either." Driving was a little useless, but Zhang Duopan's main goal was to show off his strength, not to drive. Wang Xinyan's words made Fan Ganha's expression change, but he couldn't do anything about it. After all, who could be Lin Yi's guide? Only Wang Xinyan was suitable. The group arrived at the parking lot. Zhang Duopan pointed at a Land Rover Aurora proudly and pressed the remote in his hand, but he didn't hear the familiar sound of the car door opening. This surprised him, but he pressed the remote again. The car still didn't respond. This phenomenon caused Zhang Duopan to be slightly stunned. Just when he was about to take a closer look at the car, another car stopped nearby, and a man and a woman got out. They looked like a rich student couple. They had just arrived, so they didn't know that Zhang Duopan was the owner of the car. The man said to the woman, "The car next to it doesn't belong to some idiot. It's been flashing all night, and now it's probably out of battery. When the driver comes, he probably won't even be able to open the door." Chapter 1884. Zhang Duopan's face darkened when he heard this. The flashlight was modified by him. Because it was connected directly to the battery, it didn't go through the car circuit. So, it was normal to keep flashing until the battery ran out. The day before yesterday, when he drove to school, it was already evening. In order to show off his coolness, he turned on the flashlight. There was no traffic police on campus anyway, so no one would care about him. However, he forgot to turn it off when he got out of the car. In the past 2 days and nights, the battery ran out. Bro, can you help me connect the battery to the battery? Zhang Duopan turned his head helplessly and looked at the guy who just called him a dumb *SS. Although he was scolded, he could only beg because there was only the man and woman beside the car in the parking lot at this time. "Ugh, is this your car?" The guy saw the owner of the car after he scolded him, and he suddenly felt embarrassed. "It's mine. Haha, sorry for making a fool of myself," Zhang Duopan said with a bitter face. "You can, but do you have electric pliers?" The guy asked. "This? No." Zhang Duopan shook his head. Who would bring electric pliers out for no reason? It would be better to bring a spare battery. "Then, I can't help it. You can call for help. I don't have it either." The guy shook his head, locked the car, and prepared to leave. Call for help? Are you kidding me? If I were to call for help here, how long would that take? Would Maywa still practice singing? Then, let's take a taxi. Zhang Duopan shrugged awkwardly. It wasn't easy to get a chance to act cool, but the car ran out of battery before he could do it. "Oh, you guys take a taxi. We have a car," Linny said as he took out the remote control for the Grand Cherokee. The lights of the Grand Cherokee not far away flashed.
Ah.
Zhang Duopan was extremely embarrassed at this time. He had been bragging to others about his car, but he didn't expect that the other party also had one. Not only did they have one, but it was not inferior to his car. Although the Grand Cherokee was low-key, it was expensive. Zhang Duopan often studied cars, so he naturally knew it. Fan Ganha's face was also very ugly. Before, they had cars, but now it was the other way around. Linny had a car, but they had to take a taxi. "Sorry, including Xi and Yen, there are 5 of us. Although this car has 7 seats, there are still 2 extra people."
"Sorry."
Linny looked at Zhang Duopan apologetically. The Jeep was a 7-seater, but it was modified to hold Xiao Xiao's ice coffin. Now that the coffin was removed, the seats went back to their original positions. This is nothing. What else could Zhang Duopan say? Now that things had come to this, they could only accept it. "Let's take a taxi. It's also convenient, huh?" However, Zhang Duopan's words at this moment. After all, he was the one who bragged the most before, but now he could only take a taxi. Meiwa didn't say anything, but it was obvious that she was looking down on Zhang Duopan. She felt that Lin Yi wasn't afraid of Fan Ganhe, but that he really didn't have any substantial relationship with Xinyan. From the looks of it, he wasn't someone who liked to show off. Otherwise, when Zhang Duopan said he had a car, people would have said it already. But Lin Yi only said he had a car when they got to the parking lot. Although this car was not Bai Weidua's, Bai Weidua was very refreshed, as if he had vented his anger. He said, "Some people think that they are great just because they have a car. Don't they know that cars are very common now?"
Haha, get in.
Lin Yi opened the driver's door. It was a 3-seater car, but Mei Wei and Xiaoling sat in the last row, and it wasn't too crowded. The front passenger seat was left for Xinyan. Xinyan shook her head slightly and got in the car. It seemed that these people had already decided that she and Lin Yi were a couple. Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganhe looked at Lin Yi's car leave the parking lot with dark expressions. At the end of the day, they were the only ones left without a car. When they got to the school gate, Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganhe stopped a taxi and rushed to the KTV. But when they got there, Meiwa had already started singing. Coincidentally, the two of them were singing a love song. This song was sung by Su Shirhan and her teacher, so naturally no one would think too much about it. But Meiwa and Bai Weidua singing together, it was a bit ambiguous. Zhang Duopan looked at Bai Weidua, who sang well and was in the limelight. He began to ponder. He had already lost a lot of face today. Meiwa must have lost a lot of her impression. If he wanted to win back this round, he might have to put in more effort. In high school, Zhang Duopan didn't have any competitors. He went to a key high school and the school discipline was very strict. Only students like him, who came from a rich family, would play dirty tricks. The other students only focused on their studies. But it was different in university. You could have a serious relationship here, and the school and teachers wouldn't interfere. If he wanted to beat Bai Weidua, he would have to show some skills. Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan were sitting together, and this made Fan Ganhe a bit unhappy. He wanted to go over, but Xiaoling was sitting on the other side of Wang Xinyan. He didn't have a chance. "Zhang bro, we need to think of something." Fan Ganhe was a strong student, but his family didn't have much money. He went to Donghai Industry University, and he was a special student. Zhang Duopan, on the other hand, was a self-funded student. His family was quite well off, and he always treated Fan Ganhe, so Fan Ganhe was willing to call him Zhang bro. Fuck, this guy came out of nowhere. Zhang Duopan looked at Bai Weidua and said angrily, "It's not just that Bai Weidua, that Lin Yi. He's a fucking pig in sheep's clothing. Why didn't he say he had a car? He made a fool of you, Zhang bro." Fan Ganhe wanted to pursue Wang Xinyan, so naturally, he didn't like Lin Yi. "How about this? You go get some beer, and we'll use this drinking competition as an excuse to get them drunk. It's best if we can embarrass them and make them look bad." Zhang Duopan said to Fan Ganhe. Okay. Fan Ganhe agreed immediately. It was common for them to drink in high school, and they would carry boxes of beer when they went to restaurants. It wasn't a problem for them to drink a box of beer. Fan Ganhe left the room, and after a while, he came back with 5 boxes of beer. The beer in KTV was small, but 5 boxes was a lot. 5 boxes of beer was nothing to Fan Ganhe, who was a strong student. He brought them indirectly, but Zhao Xingji and Song Xiaodao's faces changed. The beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1885. They could vaguely guess Zhang Duopan's intentions. Sure enough, when Bai Weidua finished his song, Zhang Duopan said, "Brothers, I was late just now. I wanted to treat you, but you've already paid the deposit. I can only buy some beer as an apology." Drinking alcohol isn't too good, right? Song Xiaodao didn't have any goals here. Wang Xinyan was already taken. Meiwa had Bai Weidua fighting for her, and Chai Xiaoling and Zhao Xingji were having a heated conversation. Song Xiaodao didn't plan to look for her here, and he didn't have a high tolerance for alcohol anyway. "It's okay. We're both university students. If you don't know how to drink, you can do whatever you want. Zhang Duopan wasn't targeting Song Xiaodao, so it didn't matter if he drank or not. After that, Zhang Duopan looked at Bai Weitua provocatively and said, "Brother, after singing, how about moistening your throat? Don't tell me you can't drink it, or I'll look down on you." Although Zhang Duopan didn't say it clearly, Bai Weitua understood what he meant. In front of Himeiwe, Bai Weitua was naturally unwilling to show weakness. If he were to admit defeat at this time, wouldn't he lose face? Let's drink. Who's afraid of who? Although Bai Weidua's alcohol tolerance wasn't very good, young men of his age always liked to let their emotions affect their decisions. He clearly knew that the other party was trying to provoke him, but in front of a beautiful woman, he had no choice but to take the bait. "Lin Yi, the two of us?" Fan Ganha taunted Lin Yi. Lin Yi and Xinyan were sitting together, and he hadn't been able to get a word in edgewise. Now that there was a chance, he wouldn't let it go. Lin Yi didn't want to participate in this boring game, but seeing Bai Weidua's appearance, he knew that this kid wanted to see who was better. Lin Yi shook his head helplessly. Since Bai Weidua called him Big Brother, how could he ignore him? One-on-one is boring. How about this, me and Bai Weidua? We'll fight 2-on-2. Wasn't it just a drinking competition? Just say it. Lin Yi didn't hold back at all as he exposed their intentions. This made Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganha somewhat uncomfortable. "Alright, let's compete in drinking. You said it yourself," Zhang Duopan said, coming up with an idea. Himeiwe and the others looked at him with disdain. No one here was an idiot, and he was smart enough to make it sound like Lin Yi was the one who took the beer, but they all knew very well who brought the beer. "I told you." Lin Yi nodded. Xinyan frowned. He didn't know why Lin Yi was against Fan Ganha. He clearly didn't like him, so there was no need for him to get involved. But now he changed his mind? Xinyan's heart tightened, and she shook her head. If it's a competition of drinking, then let's make it a bet. Otherwise, what's the point of drinking so much? Fan Ganha was a drunkard. 1-on-1. He was afraid that Zhang Duopan would not be able to outdrink Bai Weidua, but it was 2 against 2, so they could complement each other. That was why he was so confident. "What prize?" Bai Weidua asked. "The loser will give up on pursuing Mei Wei and stay away from her," Zhang Duopan said. "If you want to compete in drinking, don't use me as a wager. Who I want to be friends with is not up to you." Himeiwe frowned. She said unhappily. Bai Weidua was secretly grateful. Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganha dared to do this, so they must have the confidence. Himeiwe was their high school classmate, so naturally, she knew how much they could drink. At this moment, Himeiwe's words were obviously for Bai Weitua. How could he not be happy? But Lin Yi felt that it was a pity. Although Himeiwe had good intentions, it was more of a hindrance than a help. Just these two? Looking at the 5 boxes of beer under his feet, Lin Yi curled his lips. If it was white, Lin Yi wouldn't have a problem. Himeiwe's words made Zhang Duopan embarrassed. She was obviously protecting Bai Weitua. Zhang Duopan didn't understand. What was so good about Bai Weitua? Why did Himeiwe protect him? Meiwe, we're just joking. Isn't it boring? Let's add some atmosphere. Zhang Duopan laughed and said, "Let's change the prize. The loser will go to the next room, kick the door open, and curse your mother. How about it?" This was obviously harming someone. If there was someone ruthless in the next room, it wouldn't be too much to be beaten up. Zhang Duopan's proposal made Bai Weidua's face change slightly. "You are all drunk and you still want to curse? Zhang Duopan, can't you do something more realistic?" Himeiwe was a little unhappy. "Everyone comes out to play, and we are happy. Aren't you causing trouble by doing this? This wouldn't work and that wouldn't work." Zhang Duopan really couldn't think of a prize to harm Bai Weitua. If Himeiwe retorted, wouldn't it be even more embarrassing? With that in mind, he said, "How about this, Bai Weitua, what do you guys say? How about this? I suggest that we change the beer to white, and then we compete to see who can drink faster. The slower one will have to take off a piece of clothing." Lin Yi wanted to stand up for Bai Weidua, so he just wanted to embarrass the two. Change it to white and see who can drink faster? Zhang Duopan frowned. He didn't know why Lin Yi suddenly suggested this. Lin Yi and Bai Weidua hadn't spoken before, and it was He Mei Wei who was protecting them. It was only natural that Zhang Duopan thought that Lin Yi and Bai Weidua were afraid of them. But Lin Yi suddenly changed his attitude and suggested a stronger white and a competition to see who could drink faster. This was a little strange. Don't dare to compete? Then forget it. We'll do as you said, you lose. Stay away from He Mei Wei and Xinyan from now on. Lin Yi said faintly. He Mei Wei looked at Lin Yi, a trace of confusion in her eyes. Xinyan, on the other hand, was a little shy. Lin Yi didn't deny their relationship, so why would Lin Yi stand up for her now that someone was pursuing her? Could it be that he liked her? Xinyan's calm heart rippled a little as she recalled the times he'd helped her out of trouble. Perhaps this was what they called a hero saving a damsel in distress. Too bad the damsel in distress couldn't repay him with her body. Don't dare to compete? What a joke. If Lin Yi hadn't said that, Zhang Duopan would have continued to speculate about Lin Yi's true intentions. But Lin Yi's aggressiveness put him at ease. He felt that Lin Yi was purposely trying to scare them into giving up. And so, Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganhe looked at each other, and Fan Ganhe said, white wine is good, but if we're going to drink, we should drink the Red Star Erguotu with a higher alcohol content. How about it? Do you dare? The School Beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Target =_ blank. Chapter 1886. Bai Weidua's face changed, but Lin Yi nodded. Sure. Net. Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganhe felt even more reassured after seeing Bai Weidua's face. From what they could see, Lin Yi was just being stubborn. Waiter, get me 2 bottles of Red Star Erguotu. Fan Ganhe opened the door and called out to the waiter outside. I'm sorry, sir, but we don't sell that kind of alcohol here, the waiter said, embarrassed. If you don't sell it, then go buy 2 bottles for me. With that, Fan Ganhe took out 300 kwai and handed it to the waiter. Go, take the rest as a tip. Yes, sir. The waiter was overjoyed. The Red Star Erguotu in the supermarket was only 10 kwai a bottle, and he'd be making 280 kwai this way. The waiter had to pay 50% as a tip, but that was still 140 kwai. It was just an errand, of course, so he was more than happy to do it. Do you want the 56 or 65? The higher the better. Fan Ganhe looked at Lin Yi provocatively and said faintly, All right, I'll go right away. The waiter turned and ran off. Fan Ganhe had drunk baijiu before, and his alcohol tolerance was pretty good. He hadn't had a 65% baijiu before, but 2 bottles of 40% baijiu wasn't a problem at all. He wasn't afraid of Lin Yi at all. As for speed, he didn't believe that Lin Yi would be faster than a sports student. Net. Xinyan, can you do it or not? Look at how confident your guy is, don't lose out. He Mei Wei sat down in Lin Yi's seat and whispered to Xinyan. What do you mean, my guy? Xinyan blushed. How would I know if he can drink it or not? But he should be fine. As far as Xinyan was concerned, Lin Yi wasn't someone who would do something he wasn't confident in. Bai Weitua doesn't look like he can hold his liquor. You don't know, but that Zhang Duopan isn't that good, but that Fan Ganhe is a drunkard. He's an excellent student, and he'd go drinking with a bunch of people after training at night. He's already trained to hold his liquor. He Mei Wei was a little worried. Mei Wei, don't tell me you've fallen for Bai Weitua? Wang Xinyan, who had been teased by He Mei Wei all this time, finally found an opportunity to tease her back. I just feel that his impression is not bad. He's not as exaggerated as Zhang Duopan. He Mei Wei smiled, but she did not hide her thoughts. Wang Xinyan looked at He Mei Wei, a little surprised. She suddenly realized that they were in university now, and it was completely different from high school. Dating was normal now, and even the teachers didn't care about it anymore.
Who would be secretive about it?
On the other hand, because she was engaged, she hadn't adapted to this environment, and she seemed to be very shy. That's true. Xinyan nodded. Xinyan, just what are you thinking? Do you like Lin Yi? If you don't, I can introduce him to my friends. Don't waste such a good opportunity, Himeiwa said with a smile.
Don't.
Xinyan said subconsciously, but realized that she was being too nosy. She might cause Himeiwa to misunderstand. Xinyan wanted to say that Lin Yi already had a girlfriend, but this was Lin Yi's private business. Xinyan didn't want to say too much, so she kept her mouth shut. Haha, see? You're still interested in him. Himeiwa laughed, thinking that she knew what Xinyan was thinking. At that moment, the KTV waiter came back with 2 bottles of Red Star Ergo. Fan Ganha took it and took out 4 disposable paper cups from the cabinet, 1 for each person, and placed them in front of Lin Yi and the others. How do we drink? Zhang Duopan asked. I'll go first. Lin Yi didn't wait for Bai Weitua to speak. This level of liquor was like drinking water to Lin Yi. Lin Yi said as he took a bottle of Red Star Ergo 2 and poured himself a full cup. I'll accompany you. Your opponent is me. Fan Ganha followed Lin Yi's example and filled his cup. Mei Wei, please be the referee. We'll start when you say start. Lin Yi raised his cup with a smile. But let's make this clear first. Don't let too much out of your mouth and don't leave too much at the bottom of the cup, or you lose.
I don't need you to tell me that.
I won't go back on my word. Fan Ganha humphed. All right, 3, 2, 1. Start. Himeiwa saw that Lin Yi was full of confidence and didn't say anything else. How agile was Lin Yi? He was an Earth-class master. As soon as Himeiwa said the last word, the cup was already in his mouth. He raised his head and poured the liquor into his stomach. Then he put the paper cup on the table. Wow! Bai Weitua, Himeiwa, and everyone else looked at Lin Yi in shock. Even Zhang Duopan couldn't help but exclaim. Because Lin Yi was drinking too fast, it was as if he was drinking water. This wasn't drinking at all. Although Fan Ganha also drank fast, Lin Yi put down the paper cup only after everyone exclaimed. He thought that he was fast, and the exclamations were directed at him. So, after he put down the cup, he said proudly, How is it? Are you scared? Everyone looked at Fan Ganha strangely. Zhang Duopan blushed. He was annoyed that Fan Ganha was sick. The other person had finished drinking, and he still said this? Fan Ganha was waiting for everyone's praise and the sound of Lin Yi's fear. But after waiting for a long time, he didn't hear anything. He suddenly recovered from his narcissistic state and looked at Lin Yi in surprise. Did you drink? Are your eyes not good? Lin Yi pointed at the empty cup on the table.
Gah.
Fan Ganha knew that Lin Yi had finished drinking as well. And it seemed that Lin Yi had finished drinking earlier than him. Thinking about what he said before, he suddenly blushed. But he was thick-skinned. Since you finished, let's continue. You haven't taken off your clothes yet. Lin Yi shook his head and said, Don't tell me you're drunk after 1 cup? You even forgot about the prize? Who said so? Fan Ganha took off his coat. In this autumn, people usually wore 2 coats, a coat and a shirt or a t-shirt. So, it didn't affect anything after taking off 1 coat. After taking off his clothes, Fan Ganha filled his cup again and took the initiative to raise it.
This is white wine.
If you finish the first cup quickly, your stomach will be empty. If you drink it quickly, you will feel uncomfortable later. Chapter 1887. Oh, then drink slowly. Lin Yi nodded and said, Ahem. Fan Ganha was a little speechless. Did this guy really not understand, or was he pretending not to understand? I was just covering up, and he actually asked me to drink slowly. What's wrong with you? Did you drink too slowly? It's spicy to your throat? Lin Yi asked. Nothing. Fan Ganha was a little speechless. Lin Yi filled the glass. Under Himeiwa's command, he poured it again. This time, Fan Ganha didn't dare to delay, but he was still a few seconds slower than Lin Yi. This made him very depressed. I'm sorry. I was a little thirsty, so I drank too quickly. You have to take off your clothes again. Lin Yi said. At this time, Bai Weitua and the others looked at Lin Yi with a look of admiration. It can't be. Really? Isn't Lin Yi drinking too much? 2 glasses of white wine went down and nothing happened. Fan Ganha's face was a little red. Fan Ganha looked at Lin Yi with some surprise. He really looked down on this guy before. Only now did he know that Lin Yi had been pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. From the moment Lin Yi took out the car key, Fan Ganha should have thought that this guy had been pretending all along. In fact, Lin Yi really wasn't pretending because the level of his opponents in his eyes had risen. For people like Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganha, he really didn't put them in his eyes. In fact, Lin Yi's current opponents were all at the level of an Earth stage master. If this matter didn't involve Bai Weidua in the dormitory, this boy who had been calling him Big Brother, Lin Yi wouldn't be bothered to drink with these two people. Brother, you have some skills. I didn't notice it. Fan Ganha's eyes flashed a hint of anger. Before Lin Yi spoke, he took off his shirt and revealed his strong muscles. The third glass, the result was still Lin Yi. Fan Ganha's face was a little ugly. His clothes were dragged down. Only the pants were left. However, if he were to take off his pants in front of so many people, he would lose all his face in the future. This put him in a dilemma. Take off your shoes. They count as clothes. Zhang Duopan was not stupid. He immediately found an escape route for Fan Ganha. Shoes don't count as clothes, right? Bai Weidua had found a chance to humiliate the other party, so he naturally wouldn't let it go. If shoes aren't clothes, then pants shouldn't be either. Since I've already taken off all my clothes, I don't need to take them off anymore. After Zhang Duopan finished speaking, he looked at Bai Weidua with a smug expression. He thought to himself, "You little brat, you're still lacking when it comes to scheming against me. I've been called little rascal since I was young, and that's not for nothing." A bottle of ergotu was poured into this disposable paper cup. One bottle only had 3 glasses. Therefore, the winner was decided after 3 cups. Fan Ganha was defeated. But to be honest, his alcohol tolerance was not bad. After drinking a bottle of ergotu, his face was a little red, but there was nothing wrong with him. Bai Weidua, it's our turn now. How about it? If you're scared, just admit defeat. Although Lin Yi's ability to drink exceeded Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganha's expectations, Bai Weidua obviously couldn't drink. When he said he wanted to drink beer, his expression changed slightly, let alone white wine. Moreover, Zhang Duopan still had an idea in his mind. What are you afraid of? Although I can't drink, I'm doing this for love. I'm going all out today. Bai Weidua shrugged his shoulders and stared at Zhang Duopan like a tiger watching its prey. A sense of pride arose spontaneously. Before this, Lin Yi had already helped him lay the foundation. Even if he lost, it didn't matter. Everyone won 1 round each, and no one could blame the other. This was also the reason why Bai Weidua dared to challenge. However, he was secretly grateful to Lin Yi. If it weren't for Lin Yi winning the first round, he wouldn't be so bold. Okay, Ganha, you go and ask the waiter to buy 2 more bottles of white wine. I want the one just now. As Zhang Duopan said this, he gave Fan Ganha a look. These 2 people had been together for many years. Zhang Duopan's look was enough for Fan Ganha to understand. Zhang Duopan's alcohol tolerance wasn't good, but in order to win, he naturally had to do something. Fan Ganha had already embarrassed himself. At this time, he naturally put on his coat again. He walked out of the private room and went to find the waiter to buy wine. However, this time, Fan Ganha left for a longer time. In order not to arouse suspicion, Fan Ganha said as soon as he entered the door, "This waiter, I gave him 300 last time. This time I gave him 200 and he wasn't very happy." No wonder you were gone for so long. I thought you couldn't find someone to buy wine yourself." Zhang Duopan smiled. These 2 people spoke very naturally, and it didn't arouse anyone's suspicion. However, Lin Yi looked at Fan Ganha with a deep meaning. He felt that it was a bit illogical. Fan Ganha must have spent Zhang Duopan's money, but since he was spending Zhang Duopan's money, did he really need to discuss that 100 kuai with the waiter? "You guys enjoy yourself. I'm going to the washroom," Xinyan said as she walked out of the private room. They waited in the private room for a while, but the waiter still hadn't returned with the wine. Fan Ganha said, "I'll go take a look, see what's taking so long." Fan Ganha walked out of the private room and saw the waiter waiting for him. He quickly walked over and asked, "How is it?"
Is it done?
"Don't worry, I'll take care of it." "Boss, this bottle of ergot has been opened, and I changed it to mineral water according to your request. This bottle is unopened, and it's still white wine," the waiter explained to Fangonha. "Not bad. Well done." Fangonha nodded, satisfied. "It's nothing, the boss gave me such a big tip. If I can't even do something like this, I'd be too embarrassed to take the money," the waiter said. Fangonha didn't say anything as he picked up the 2 bottles of ergot and walked into the private room. Wang Xinyan, who had just returned from the washroom, saw this scene. Xinyan frowned as she walked into the private room. She walked to Lin Yi's side and whispered something into his ear. "Don't worry, I'm fine after drinking this little bit of wine."
I can drive.
Lin Yi winked at Xinyan with a smile. Xinyan paused. She'd told Lin Yi about Fangonha's tricks, and Lin Yi's answer was so strange. But Xinyan was smart. She didn't think that Lin Yi didn't hear what she said, and Lin Yi said that because he didn't want Fangonha to suspect him. Thinking about how Lin Yi's answer was a little ambiguous, as if she was concerned about him, Xinyan blushed. Under the dim light of the KTV private room, she looked even more beautiful. Fangonha was both happy and angry at the same time. Wang Xinyan was actually concerned about Lin Yi. These two didn't look like normal friends no matter how he looked at it. The School Beauty's personal expert welcomed readers to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1888. Wine again? Okay, let's continue. As Lin Yi said this, he pushed the 2 bottles of ergot on the table over. "Ha! This time by Weidua and I will drink." "I say, by Weidua, you won't let him drink for you, right?" When Zhang Duoban saw that Lin Yi still wanted to drink for him, his face changed slightly. His alcohol tolerance wasn't as good as Fangonha. Even if he drank water, he didn't have the confidence to win. After all, Lin Yi drank alcohol as fast as he drank water. "Brother Lin, let me do it this time," Bai Weidua said. Alright, then I'll give it to you." Lin Yi pushed the 2 bottles of white wine over. Seeing that Lin Yi gave up, Zhang Duoban suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. He picked up the ergot in front of him and opened the bottle cap. He thought, this Zhang Duoban is quite amazing. He replaced the inside with water, and the bottle cap on the outside is still intact. There is no flaw at all. What a talent. If Lin Yi and Bai Weitua were suspicious, they wouldn't be able to see anything wrong. However, although Zhang Duoban thought so, Fangonha's face changed. He clearly remembered that the bottle of ergot near Zhang Duoban should have been opened. It was impossible to be newly opened. Could it be that there was a problem? In contrast, Bai Weitua was a bit puzzled. Why does my bottle of ergot seem to be opened and closed again? Could it be that I encountered the legendary mixture of a few bottles of leftover wine? But ergot is very cheap. It's not worth it, right? As he was wondering in his heart, Bai Weitua suddenly felt his feet being kicked twice. When he turned his head, he saw Lin Yi's comforting smile. Bai Weitua's heart brightened. Could it be that Lin Yi did something? Bai Weitua quickly poured the ergot in front of him into the disposable paper cup, and he found something unusual. Although this ergot also had the smell of alcohol, it wasn't strong. It was just a faint smell. Could it be? Bai Weitua was excited. He didn't know how Lin Yi did it. But Lin Yi must have done something to it. Otherwise, how could he have hinted at her? On the other side, Zhang Duoban also poured some wine. But after he did so, he was dumbfounded. What kind of mineral water was this?
It was clearly ergot.
The smell of alcohol was strong. Zhang Duoban frowned. Could it be that Fangonha didn't understand what he meant? What the hell was this guy doing? But at this moment, he definitely couldn't open his mouth to ask. If he did, wouldn't everyone know that he wanted to cheat? Therefore, he could only bite the bullet and raise his glass. Bai Weitua.
Come on.
This time, Miyue will be the judge again. Although the liquor was not changed to water, Zhang Duoban thought that Bai Weitua was definitely not as good as him. Although this bottle of white wine was a bit too much for him, it was still better than Bai Weitua.
Sure. Come on.
Bai Weitua, on the other hand, was full of confidence. If he couldn't beat her in drinking water, he might as well buy a piece of tofu and kill himself. Fan Ganha wanted to say something, but he hesitated for a moment. In the end, he didn't say it because he didn't know what to say. He looked at Bai Weidua's excited look and guessed that his ergo-2 with mineral water was probably in Bai Weidua's hands. However, Fan Ganha was very puzzled. He clearly put the bottle of mineral water in front of Fan Ganha, but how did it run to Bai Weidua? He didn't understand. The bottle was pushed by Lin Yi at that time, but Lin Yi should know the hidden story behind it. Moreover, when Lin Yi pushed the bottle, he was also watching closely. How could Lin Yi have the chance to switch? 3, 2, 1.
Start.
He Mei Wei had already shouted the slogan. Bai Weitua and Zhang Duoban raised their wine glasses at the same time. Compared to Bai Weitua, who drank the wine in one gulp, Zhang Duoban was in much more pain. He drank the wine several times, but he finally drank it. After drinking it, he looked at the empty wine glass in front of Bai Weitua in shock. You finished drinking? Zhang Duoban looked at Bai Weidua's calm face and hesitated. Yeah, I finished drinking. Bai Weitua smiled, but he was a little guilty. I don't want the other party to find out that I drank mineral water. This is strange. Zhang Duoban thought. Is this Bai Weitua also pretending to be weak? Why does it look like he didn't drink after drinking? However, he couldn't do anything about it. He could only say, okay, then let's continue. He filled the glass again. There was no doubt that Bai Weitua won. This made Zhang Duopan's face a little bad. He was also bare-chested, but his figure wasn't as good as Fan Ganha's. His bulging belly was exposed. The third glass was naturally Bai Weitua's victory. This time, Zhang Duopan was completely desperate. Why did my strength become my weakness when it came to the other party? Before Fan Ganha lost, he could understand. After all, this method of competition was proposed by Lin Yi. Without confidence, Lin Yi wouldn't have proposed this method of competition. However, Bai Weitua's worried expression was seen by Zhang Duopan. Could it be? Zhang Duopan picked up Bai Weidua's wine bottle. Although the remaining wine wasn't enough to fill a glass, there was still enough left. Zhang Duopan directly poured it into his own glass. He picked it up and smelled it. Suddenly, he revealed a look of realization. Bai Weidua was shocked. He cheated, and Zhang Duopan caught him in the act. Wouldn't he may well look down on him? If he lost, it was because he wasn't strong enough. But cheating was another matter. Just as Bai Weitua was very nervous, afraid that Zhang Duopan would reveal the truth, Zhang Duopan put the wine bottle on the table with a gloomy face. He said indifferently, Brother Bai is really courageous. I admire you. I concede defeat. Bai Weitua looked at Zhang Duopan in confusion. What's wrong with this guy? Why didn't he expose me? He didn't see it? In fact, it wasn't that Zhang Duopan didn't want to expose him, but he couldn't. This wine was Fan Ganha's doing. Even if he exposed it, it would mean that Bai Weidua cheated. He would be the one who wanted to cheat first. At that time, He Mei Wei would look down on him even more. So no matter what, Zhang Duopan could only pinch his nose and admit defeat. Xinyan covered her mouth with a smile. Lin Yi didn't disappoint her. She knew from the train that Lin Yi was very skillful, or the scammer's money wouldn't have ended up in Lin Yi's pocket. This time, Lin Yi must have used the same trick, swapping the bottle of ergo-2 in front of Bai Weidua without anyone noticing. Bai Weidua didn't think that he'd win just like that. Yes, it really was a mystery. The School Beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1889. Bai Weidua thought that if he had known this, he would have made the bet with Zhang Duopan. Whoever lost had to stay away from He Mei Wei. Okay, let's continue. The competition is over. Zhang Duopan, do you understand now? There's always someone stronger than you, and there's always someone stronger than you? He Mei Wei looked at Zhang Duopan's defeated look and shook her head helplessly. She hated Zhang Duopan's arrogant attitude the most. She felt good that he was defeated. Zhang Duopan's face darkened. He was unconvinced. Yes, he lost unjustly. He could have won, but Fan Ganhe ruined it. He didn't know that it was Lin Yi's trick. If he knew, he wouldn't be so angry. But now, he thought that he accidentally messed it up, so he was very depressed. When he heard Himei say this, he felt that he couldn't lose face in front of Bai Weidua, so he straightened his neck and said, "Let's do it this way. Drinking is just a small thing. It's not a serious competition. If you want to compete, let's have a big competition."
Oh, how?
Bai Weidua won the drinking competition, so he was full of confidence. At this time, he naturally wouldn't be weak. How about this? During the freshman party, we'll each put up a performance. Whoever's performance gets the highest ranking wins, and the loser will voluntarily give up on Meiyue. What do you think? Zhang Duopan risked being scolded by Himei and used her as a wager again. Of course, he had a reason for doing this. Bai Weidua had just won, and now his ego was inflated. If he made such a request again, Bai Weidua might be hot-headed and agree. At that time, even if Himei said something, it would be useless. A man should not go back on his words. Zhang Duopan had more reason to push him, although Bai Weidua drank water. In order to make it more realistic, Fan Ganhe asked the waiter to leave some wine in the bottle. This was nothing to Zhang Duopan, but Bai Weidua was a little drunk. Hearing Zhang Duopan's words, he immediately said boldly, "Okay, let's compete. Who's afraid of who?" Bai Weidua had some confidence in his singing. Otherwise, he wouldn't be singing duets with Himei as soon as he arrived, because this was his strength. He always went on stage during the school's art festival. He had won first place in the solo competition before, so he wasn't afraid of Zhang Duopan at all. Good, a gentleman's word. Zhang Duopan was overjoyed and quickly said, "I won't take back my words." Bai Weidua said, "That's a good idea. I'm talking about each of us coming up with a program. I'm not talking about going on stage personally. In other words, as long as I'm the one who planned and participated in this program, it's fine." Zhang Duopan looked at Bai Weidua proudly. Wasn't this guy full of confidence? He didn't mind giving him a blow to lower his morale. So what? Bai Weidua also knew that Zhang Duopan was playing a word game. One person coming up with a show and one person performing a show were two different things. Coming up with a show could be a show that everyone completed together. As long as he participated, it would be fine. But one person performing, it would be one person. However, Bai Weidua couldn't take back his words, so he could only bite the bullet and say it. "Okay, Meiyue." This time he volunteered, and it's not like I'm hurting him. Brother Bai's voice is not bad. Maybe he can really get a good result? Zhang Duopan said with a smile. Himei shook her head. She wanted to say something, but it was indeed too late. At this time, the two people were already facing each other. If Himei said anything, it would be a bit unreasonable. One was an old classmate and the other was a new classmate with a good impression. If Himei hated the two to the extreme, she would definitely stop them. However, the key problem was that Himei didn't hate them, so she let them do whatever they wanted. "Don't look at me. I'm not interested in gambling with you." Lin Yi looked at Fan Ganhe and said faintly, "I'm drinking with you because of Bai Weidua." Fan Ganhe was annoyed. This Lin Yi didn't put him in his eyes. He was completely ignoring him. Fan Ganhe was thinking about whether or not he should find a chance to mess with Lin Yi and show him how strong he was. All right, let's sing." Himei didn't want to waste any more time. She still had things to do tomorrow, and the military training was starting the day after. There was some unpleasantness between them, but Himei's voice was really good. Bai Weidua and Zhang Duopan were in unison, praising Himei at night. Lin Yi drove his roommates and Xinyan back to school. Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganhe, on the other hand, had to take a taxi back. "Boss, how did you do it? You replaced that ergo-2 with plain water?" Bai Weidua said excitedly, but then remembered that Himei was still sitting in the back. He felt a little embarrassed. Meiyue, you drank water?" Himei was a little surprised. "I didn't switch the water," Fan Ganhe did. Lin Yi said. Xinyan overheard the conversation between Fan Ganhe and the waiter when she went to the washroom, so I switched it for you secretly. That water was meant for Zhang Duopan. No wonder. He Meiwei realized. Lin Yi had been sitting in the room the whole time, and no matter how powerful he was, there was no way he could have switched the liquor in the ergo-2 with water in front of everyone. But it was possible that he'd secretly switched the two bottles. I was wondering, so it was their own doing. No wonder Zhang Duopan didn't say anything when he sniffed the liquor in my glass, and then didn't say anything. He just looked like he was eating shit. He was the one who got the short end of the stick. Bai Weitua laughed heartily. You're amazing, big bro Lin. You did it without anyone noticing. It's just a small trick, Lin Yi said faintly. Xinyan, on the other hand, smiled faintly. She'd known all along that Lin Yi was capable of this. Didn't he steal all the money from those scammers on the train? When they arrived at school, Lin Yi and the others sent Xinyan, He Meiwei, and Chai Xiaoling back to their dorms before heading back to the boys' dorm. However, they bumped into the Miss and Shu in front of the girls' dorm. Lin Yi was walking shoulder to shoulder with Xinyan when he saw Meng Yao. He froze. Xinyan was a little startled. She didn't know what these two pretty girls were up to, but she could tell that they were looking at her with hostility. Xinyan didn't know what she'd done to offend them. Or were they here for Lin Yi? The school beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1890. Meng Yao and Yu Shu, naturally, had an impression of Xinyan. It was the first time they went shopping with Lin Yi, and Lin Yi stood up for this pretty girl. That pissed off both Meng Yao and Yu Shu. Xinyan might not have anything to do with Lin Yi, but they didn't have a good impression of this girl. But other than Lin Yi, Bai Weitua, Zhao Xingji, and Song Xiaodao were all wide-eyed. Where did these two school beauties come from? And why did it seem like they had some sort of grudge against Lin Yi and Xinyan? Lin Yi, Meng Yao said faintly as she looked at Xinyan. I'm done here, let's go home. Xinyan looked at Meng Yao, a little surprised. Wasn't Lin Yi's girlfriend Xiao Xiao? Why did Meng Yao sound like she was living with Lin Yi? Could it be that Lin Yi changed girlfriends? No wonder Meng Yao's eyes were so unfriendly. So it was because he was with Lin Yi? I'll be on my way. Xinyan smiled faintly as she nodded to Lin Yi and left. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He didn't think that the miss would say something so flirtatious in front of everyone. Back in high school, the miss didn't want people to know that he was living with her, but now that they were in university, she was telling everyone about it. Let's go. Lin Yi shrugged helplessly. Bai Weitua and the others were dumbfounded. So this was Lin Yi's girlfriend? Then Xinyan He Meiwei frowned as she looked at Lin Yi, and then at Xinyan, who was walking away. She couldn't see anything wrong. Wang Xinyan was still as calm as ever, as if what was happening in front of her had nothing to do with her. This confused He Meiwei. Was there really nothing going on between Wang Xinyan and Lin Yi? Lin Yi and Bai Weitua waved their hands and walked towards the parking lot with Miss and Shu. No way. We've all misunderstood? Bai Weitua's eyes widened in disbelief. Living together? No wonder boss didn't come back last night. Song Xiaodao enviously said.
Xinyan.
Is there really nothing going on between you and Lin Yi? He Meiwei pulled on Xinyan's arm. Really? Xinyan shrugged, a bitter smile on her face. We're just friends. Okay, I believe you this time. He Meiwei finally nodded. But I always feel that the two of you are a little ambiguous. It's really pure. Xinyan joked. Lin Yi, Meng Yao, and Yu Shu came to the parking lot together. Surprisingly, the miss didn't mention Xinyan anymore. Instead, she talked about something else. Military training the day after tomorrow. Bring me and Shu some first aid medicine. The kind that heals external injuries and detoxifies. Meng Yao said. There will be field training, and I'm worried that something might happen without you around. Okay, but call me if there's any trouble. Lin Yi nodded. Every faculty has a different time, so we probably won't run into each other. Meng Yao said. Plus, Shu and I want to train ourselves. We can't rely on you for everything. You'll leave us sooner or later. Yeah, Shield Bro flirts with girls all the time. He doesn't talk to us anymore. Yushu nodded, feeling wronged. So you two are still unhappy about Wang Xinyan? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. There's nothing going on between me and her. Didn't I tell you guys? I took the same train with her when I first came to Songshan. She's kind, so we got to know each other. I know I didn't say anything, Meng Yao said faintly. But you're doing this to Xiao Xiao. We don't think it's a good idea. Xiao Xiao. Lin Yi frowned at the mention of Xiao Xiao. This wasn't the first time he had this weird feeling. Thinking about Xiao Xiao made Lin Yi feel like he had a girlfriend. Right, Xiao Xiao. She's my second wife. Am I right? Meng Yao and Yushu looked at each other. They didn't know how to answer, but Yushu nodded. Yeah, why? Then here's the problem. If she's the second wife, then who's the main wife? Lin Yi asked. As expected, here's the problem. The miss frowned. She knew that this wouldn't be solved so easily. There were still some flaws in this medicine. If it was Tang Yun who stayed in Snowy Valley and focused on training, there wouldn't be so many problems. But the problem was that Lin Yi had gone back to his old life. There were some things in his life that reminded him of his memories. It wasn't as simple as just forgetting about Tang Yun. Lin Yi might not be able to remember what he couldn't see, but what about what he could see? Meng Yao and Yushu looked at each other bitterly, not knowing how to explain. It seemed like Lin Yi didn't forget that Xiao Xiao was his second wife. Actually, Yao Yao is your main wife, Yushu said seriously. Lin Yi was speechless. He didn't believe Shu. Don't listen to Shu's nonsense. I'm hungry, let's go. Meng Yao interrupted, changing the topic for now. When they got home, Grandma Sun was busy preparing dinner. Meng Yao, on the other hand, pulled Shu upstairs. Lin Yi didn't ask much. The two were always like this at home. Lin Yi used this time to go out and buy medicine. There were injury medicines, but there weren't that many antidotes. Lin Yi had some with him, and after giving it to Meng Yao and the others, Lin Yi didn't have any left. Naturally, he had to make some more. Meng Yao and Yushu went upstairs. The Miss face was very serious. Shu, Lin Yi seems to have remembered something. What do we do? Yeah, I think so too. Shield Bro seems to have remembered something, but he doesn't remember anything related to Yun Yun Sis. He remembers everything else very clearly. I can't even lie to him that you're the main wife, because he remembers that you're not. Yushu said bitterly. That's right. I can see it too. It doesn't matter if it's you, me, or anyone else. As long as you're with Tang Yun, it's all gone. But the side effects are very obvious as well. It'll cause memory gaps. Meng Yao frowned. What should we do? If we tell the truth, then we'll waste Yun Yun's efforts. But if we don't, Lin Yi will only get more and more suspicious. The School Beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the whole thing. Chapter 1891. It'd be great if we could get in touch with Xiao Xiao. We'll be able to think of something if we're together, Yushu said. Yeah, you two have the most ideas. Meng Yao nodded. Speak of the devil and he'll appear. Sometimes, reality was just that coincidental snowy valley. Tang Yun's parents had been here for a while. Tang Juqing didn't have much of a problem. The ice palace was beautiful, and he could live like a hermit with his wife and daughter. He didn't have to work hard, and he didn't have to worry about food and clothing. Everything was taken care of by the snowy valley. It was just that he wasn't used to having food and clothes at his fingertips. Xiaoming was also a quiet person. Every day, other than cultivating the mental cultivation technique of the Snow Valley with Mother Tang, she lived a quiet life. She was already used to being neglected in the Tang family. Compared to here, where she could walk around freely and see her sister, brother-in-law, and daughter, this was like heaven. But Madame Tang's arrival had brought disaster upon the Snowy Valley. The venerable elder had always thought that she was a snobbish person after practicing heartless tactics. But after meeting Mrs. Tang, she finally understood what snobbery and greed were. Compared to her, Mrs. Tang paled in comparison. Reporting to Elder Zhang on duty, the disciples of the snowy valley found 1,000-year snow lotus. A disciple cupped his fist. Ah, 1,000-year snow lotus. Yun, isn't that precious? Let's leave it for Lin Yi. Lin Yi is a practitioner too, but he doesn't have that many treasures. We should leave all the good stuff for him. Mrs. Tang was even better than the pig. Whenever the snowy valley found something good, she would always bring Tang Yun to the scene. A few black lines appeared on the Grand Elder's forehead. It had only been a few days, and Mrs. Tang had taken over half of the good stuff they found. How were they supposed to live in the future? They weren't familiar with the snowy valley now. By the time they got to know each other better, wouldn't Mother Tang have already ransacked the entire Snow Valley's treasury? Mom, you've already saved a lot of good stuff for Lin Yi, Tang Yun said helplessly. I'm not afraid of having too many good stuff. I want this snow lotus, Mrs. Tang said to Elder Zhang arrogantly. Yes, Mrs. Tang. Elder Zhang's forehead was covered in cold sweat. However, even the Grand Elder couldn't do anything about it. How could Elder Zhang stop Mrs. Tang? Mrs. Tang's pet phrase was, if you don't want to give it to me, fine, I'll take my daughter and leave. Go back to find Lin Yi, get married, and have children. Inheritance my ass. If you have the ability, why don't you kill us? Therefore, the Great Elder did not do anything to her at all. The Great Elder had never seen such a snobbish and shameless person in his life. This was simply turning hostile. If things did not go his way, he would threaten to leave, and the Grand Elder could only let him do as he pleased. After all, Xuegu didn't have anything to threaten Tang Yun with now, and Lin Yi's qi deviation had been cured. If Tang Yun insisted on leaving, Xuegu couldn't do anything about it. It wasn't easy to find an inheritor. They couldn't really kill her, could they? And Mrs. Tang was Tang Yun's mother, and they couldn't defend her. If they offended her, Tang Yun wouldn't cultivate properly, and the one who would suffer in the end would be Xuegu. Moreover, Mrs. Tang wasn't Tang Yun's biological mother, but an adoptive mother, and Mrs. Tang's real daughter was Bingtang. If they really killed her, wouldn't that girl Bingtang explode in anger and turn Xuegu upside down? One had to know that Bingtang wasn't weaker than the Great Elder, and Bingtang's cultivation method was obviously better than the Great Elder's. Even the Great Elder didn't have the confidence to win against her. The Grand Elder was filled with hatred. Before Mrs. Tang came, he was the one who threatened Tang Yun. In order to cure Lin Yi, Tang Yun had no choice but to compromise. But when Mrs. Tang came, the situation was completely reversed. Mrs. Tang had become the Grand Elder who threatened everyone. Fortunately, Xuegu was a big family and didn't lack these things. Mrs. Tang wasn't a greedy person, and she would at least leave half of it for Xuegu. This made the Great Elder feel better. However, as greedy as Mrs. Tang was, she treated her own people well, especially Lin Yi. Once she decided on him as her son-in-law, even if Tang Yun's status was high now, she didn't have the slightest intention of letting Tang Yun climb up the ladder. In comparison, it was better than the Great Elder's heartless snobbishness. Mom, that's enough. Tang Yun felt helpless towards her mother. The two mothers' personalities were completely different. What do you mean? That's enough. I'll go to the Ice Palace tomorrow and ask Bingtang for more stuff. Doesn't she want to be Lin Yi's little wife? If she doesn't show some sincerity, I won't be on her side, Mrs. Tang said. Cough, cough. The Great Elder almost choked to death at Mrs. Tang's words. It wasn't just their family that was going to suffer, but the Ice Palace was going to suffer as well. But this made the Great Elder very happy. Thinking about how Bingtang was going to suffer as well, she felt that it was nothing for Xuegu to suffer a bit. Tang Yun sighed to herself. She didn't tell her mother about Lin Yi's situation, so she didn't know that Lin Yi had already forgotten about her. Tang Yun didn't want her mother to worry, so she kept it a secret. But hearing that her mother was going to the Ice Palace made her feel uneasy. Xiao Xiao probably didn't know about Lin Yi's situation yet, and if her mother really went to the Ice Palace and Xiao Xiao contacted Lin Yi, wouldn't her efforts be wasted? Tang Yun knew that her mother was probably just saying it casually, and the chances of her going to the Ice Palace was close to zero, but she didn't want to take the risk. As she practiced heartless arts, the coldness around Tang Yun became thicker and thicker, and she had a cold and emotionless aura around her, making people feel like they couldn't get close to her. Only people who practiced the same element would be less affected, and Lin Yi practiced an extreme yang element, so there was no chance of him being with her. Tang Yun finally understood why heartless arts was called heartless arts. Only a person who was disheartened and wanted to forget his feelings would create such a mental cultivation method and mnemonic chant. Tang Yun didn't feel anything wrong at first, but as her strength increased, every time she thought of Lin Yi, the sweetness of the past, she'd feel as if her heart was being cut by an ice knife. It was like blood was dripping, and the pain was unbearable. Tang Yun knew that this might be the result of not taking the senseless grass's medicinal liquid. The school beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1892. Right now, she was only at the peak of the early phase of Golden Class, and it was already so unbearable. The path ahead would only be more painful. Plus, this was a situation where Tang Yun had accepted the inheritance before training. If she wasn't an inheritor, it would be even more painful to break through the barrier during training. It was practically a torture for a person. But even without the barrier, it was still very painful for Tang Yun to train. However, she didn't tell anyone about her pain, not even her mother or the Grand Elder, because she knew that this was her own choice, and it was the choice she had made. Every time she finished her training, she would think about how she would become a master, someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with Lin Yi. She would feel happiness from the bottom of her heart. I can be as strong as you. I can be your helper. Although it's impossible in reality, but in my dreams, I will fight alongside you. I won't be your burden anymore. I'll be your pride. When the ancient sects communicated with each other, they still maintained the ancient tradition of writing letters. But when it came to important matters, they had the newest high-tech communication method, satellite phones. There was no cell signal in the inner sect of the Snowy Valley, and there were no landlines either. But satellite phones were unimpeded. Of course, only when an elder or a sect leader had something important to discuss would they use the satellite phone. Sister Shui, can I use the satellite phone in the valley? Tang Yun found Sydney, wanting to borrow the phone to call Xiao Xiao. She was afraid that her mother would mess things up first. Satellite phone? You want to call? Shueli looked at Tang Yun strangely. Tang Yun's parents were already here. Who was Tang Yun calling? I want to call Xiao Xiao, Tang Yun said. Xiao Xiao. You mean the Ice Palace? Sydney's expression tensed up. The Snowy Valley hadn't told the Ice Palace about finding an inheritor yet. They wanted to show off after Tang Yun became a sky class. That would be shocking. After all, Tang Yun trained after receiving the inheritance. Compared to Feng Xiaoxiao's inheritance, it was much faster because Tang Yun didn't have the barrier of a practitioner's level. It wasn't that her path of cultivation would be smooth sailing, but Feng Xiaoxiao's inheritance was much faster. But at least it was rain or shine. So when the Snow Valley suddenly took out an inheritor with the strength of a peak late-stage heaven stage, it would naturally be more shocking than now. He didn't think that Tang Yun would call him right now, but Sydney thought about it carefully. With the relationship between Tang Yun, Xiao Xiao, and Bingtang, this matter couldn't be hidden for long. After all, Bingtang's birth mother lived in the Snow Valley. It was possible to hide it for a while, but it would be difficult to hide it for a long time. Plus, Mrs. Tang had said that she went to the Ice Palace today and took all the treasures for Lin Yi. How could she not talk about Tang Yun's situation?
Compared to that,
he might as well go and shock the little girl, Bingtang, and let her know that the Snow Valley also had an inheritor.
Yes.
It's her, Lin Yi's, concubine. Tang Yun smiled. Sydney frowned. She didn't know how good Lin Yi was. Why did so many people like him? But this was other people's business, and Sydney couldn't say much. She just said, Okay, Tang Yun sister, I will discuss it with the Grand Elder, but it should be fine. Yes, thank you. Tang Yun nodded. No need to thank me. You are the future Grand Elder. In the Snow Valley, your position is not lower than mine. You are welcome. Sydney shook her head. At first, she treated Tang Yun well, because Tang Yun brought benefits to the Snow Valley. But as they got to know each other, Sydney found that Tang Yun was a person who was easy to get along with. At least she didn't have any arrogance because she was an inheritor. In fact, with Tang Yun's status in the Snow Valley, even if her words did not carry enormous weight, she could at least override Shui Li's authority. However, Tang Yun did not do so. She was still polite to Shui Li, without a trace of arrogance. "Why don't we go together?" Tang Yun was a little impatient. She was afraid that her mother would call Bingting first and Xiao Xiao would contact Lin Yi. That would be a big deal. One had to know that Mrs. Tang wouldn't listen to others. If she wanted to make a call, even the Grand Elder couldn't stop her. Although everyone knew that she was just saying that she would take Tang Yun away, no one dared to provoke her. "Okay," Sydney said, "then let's go together." When they arrived at the Great Elder's room, Shui Li briefly explained Tang Yun's idea to the Great Elder. The Great Elder nodded without hesitation and said, "All right, Shui Li, give Bingtang a call first and show the power of our Snow Valley. Then let Yunyan talk to Xiao Xiao." Okay. Sydney was also angry. Last time, she was rejected by Bingtang. This time, she wanted to show Bingtang that the Snow Valley could find an inheritor even without the help of the Ice Palace. The satellite phone of the ancient sects wouldn't be used easily. Once it was used, it would be a big deal. The phone was brought to Bingtang and Qing said, "Palace Master, there's a satellite phone." Bingtang nodded and picked up the phone. "Hello, I'm Bingtang." The people who could use this phone were the heads or elders of the ancient houses and sections. So when Bingtang picked up the phone, she didn't show any disrespect or arrogance. After all, the people on the other side were on the same level as her. "Sect leader, I am Shui Li," Shui Li said straightforwardly. "So it's the Snow Valley Master. What do you want?" Bingtang was curious. She had just rejected Sydney not long ago. Why was she calling again? It's nothing. "I just wanted to tell you that the Snow Valley has an inheritor, and she has already comprehended the power of the Snow Valley's inheritance." Shui Li's tone was calm, but everyone could hear the pride in her voice.
What?
"There's an inheritor? And he learned the inheritance?" Bingtang's eyes widened in shock. The Snow Valley finding an inheritor was already a great thing, but to learn the inheritor, that was a very difficult thing to do. Even Xiao Xiao and Bingtang couldn't guarantee that they'd be able to accept the inheritor. After all, the inheritance was about understanding the power of the heavens and earth. It depended on luck and coincidence. It wasn't guaranteed to succeed. "Yes, sorry, but our Snow Valley was a step ahead of you." Sydney smiled. "Palace Master Bing, thank you for rejecting me last time. Otherwise, we might have wasted a talent." The School Beauty's personal expert welcomed readers to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1893. Sydney was speaking the truth. If Bingtang had agreed to Sydney's suggestion, then Sydney and the Grand Elder would have been so happy that they would have given the fruit to Tang Yun and let them leave. There wouldn't be any inheritance then. But these words sounded like sarcasm to Bingtang. Bingtang humphed. "Then I'll have to congratulate you." "Congratulations to your Snowy Valley. You'll be the guest of honor there, going to Heaven-class Island together." "Haha, but we really have to thank you for this. In the future, our Snowy Valley and Ice Palace will be even closer,"
Sydney said.
"What do you mean?" Bingtang frowned, not understanding what Sydney meant. Snowy Valley and Ice Palace used to be one family thousands of years ago. They both originated from that place, but the two sects fought and supported each other. To say that they were closer was a bit strange. "Our Shuigu's future Supreme Elder will be your younger sister, cousin and cousin. That's almost the same as your biological sister. Don't you think it's closer than ever?" Shui Li said proudly. Shuigu finally had a chance to vent his anger. Naturally, Shui Li would not let it go. "You mean Tang Yun?" Bingtang paused and immediately thought of Tang Yun, but she was a bit doubtful. How did Tang Yun become the inheritor? Her body? That's right. "We have to thank your Ice Palace for leaving such a talent to our Snowy Valley." Sydney smiled. As far as I know, her body isn't anything special. Bingtang paused as she thought of something. Could it be the legendary hidden ice heart jade bone body? Hee, that's right. Sydney said, it is the rare hidden ice heart jade bone body. It's the same as our grand elder. She directly opened the inheritance in the Snowy Valley. Why did she go to the Snowy Valley? Bingtang was curious. Although the Ice Palace had their own information channels, they didn't find out that Tang Yun stayed in the Snowy Valley. Of course, this was a secret. After Lin Yi came back, no one mentioned Tang Yun again. The Ice Palace naturally wouldn't know the real reason. I'll let little sister Tang tell you the details. Sydney let out a sigh of relief. Naturally, she didn't want to explain the reason. It was better for Tang Yun to explain. With that, Sydney handed the phone to Tang Yun. Bingtang sis. Tang Yun took the phone. Yun, it's really you. Rock Candy took a deep breath in disbelief. But the truth was right in front of her eyes. She had no choice but to believe it. Tang Yun actually had the hidden heart of ice and jade bones. It was even stronger than his fake ice heart jade bone physique. However, it could only be discovered in a place like the Snow Valley. In the Ice Palace, it would probably never be discovered. Not to mention accepting the inheritance. Yes. Bingtang sis, I stayed in the Snow Valley. Tang Yun told Bingtang everything that happened during this period of time, so that's how it is. No wonder you could accept the inheritance under such circumstances. Rock Candy said, but Lin, never mind, you talk to Xiao. Rock Candy didn't want to say anything about Lin Yi and Tang Yun. She didn't expect that Tang Yun would make such a sacrifice, giving the forgetfulness herb to Lin Yi and letting her face the pain of yearning alone. This wasn't something a normal person could do. Xiao heard that it was a call from Tang Yun and ran over, taking the phone from Tang's hands excitedly. Tang Yun sis. Xiao. Hearing this familiar voice, Tang Yun's heart warmed. It feels so good to be able to hear your voice again. Yes, Tang Yun sis, I'm good now. When I become a Sky class, we'll go back and play 3P with Lin Yi honey. Xiao said excitedly. Rock Candy, on the other hand, was speechless. Qing smiled but didn't say anything. Tang Yun, on the other hand, couldn't help but cry after hearing this. If it were before, she would be really shy when she heard Xiao say this, but now. Xiao's suggestion was a distant dream. Even if Tang Yun wanted to and agreed to it, it was impossible. Xiao, listen to me. I might not be able to be with you guys anymore, Tang Yun said sadly.
Ah.
Tang Yun sis, what's wrong? Xiao paused and asked. Tang Yun smiled bitterly and told Xiao what she said to Rock Candy.
Ah.
Xiao cried out in shock. You're saying that you gave Lin Yi's husband the forgetfulness herb? Doesn't that mean he won't remember you anymore? How are we going to do 3P then?
Huh.
You go play with Yao and Shu. I'm afraid that when my heartless arts reaches its peak, you guys won't like me anymore. Tang Yun said helplessly and sadly. Who would like someone with a cold aura around them, someone who made people want to stay away from them? Tang Yun sis, is there really no other way? Xiao started to feel sad as well. No, unless my heart doesn't change and Lin doesn't hate me, or maybe he's not afraid of this cold aura that makes people want to stay away from me. Then maybe there's a chance. Tang Yun was just saying it casually because she knew that the possibility was too small. Then, doesn't that mean that I can't do it? I'm training in the ice element too. Xiao said, shocked. We're different, the merciless arts. It can make people emotionless, not just Lin Yi. Maybe it's the same for me. Tang Yun smiled bitterly. I heard that you can't have love in the later stages of the merciless arts, otherwise it'll be useless. I see. Xiao was very sad and sympathetic. Then, what should I do now? Xiao, what you need to do now is to work with me and make Lin Yi forget me. That's the biggest help and comfort for me. Tang Yun said, if I make Lin Yi remember me, I really don't know if he'll come to Snowy Valley again and forcefully take me away. That won't do either of us any good, and he won't be able to fight against the ancient sects, and I don't want to go back on my words. This is something I promised Snowy Valley of my own accord. The Grand Elder and Sydney relaxed after hearing Tang Yun's words. They'd been scared to death by Mrs. Tang these days, afraid that she'd take Tang Yun away in a fit of anger, and that'd be a huge loss for Snowy Valley. But now that they knew Tang Yun's feelings, they were relieved. The School Beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the whole thing. Chapter 1894. Resolutely give Upus for Mrs. Tang. She could take whatever she wanted. Snowy Valley had a strong foundation, and she wasn't an outsider anymore. As long as Tang Yun really became the Grand Elder of Snowy Valley, then Tang Yun would have a part of everything. Oh, I see. Xiao Xiao didn't really want to, but she knew that if she told Lin Yi the truth, she'd be harming Lin Yi and Tang Yun. With Lin Yi's personality, he might really do something out of line. Thinking back to when Lin Yi brought her to the Ice Palace, he wouldn't budge an inch in front of Bingtang, even bringing up the 2-year agreement. How could Lin Yi just let Tang Yun go like that? Yeah, I've talked to Yao Yao and Shu already. You guys, help me take care of him. Perhaps one day, we'll meet again, but at that time, I'll be watching you guys from the back, wishing you all the best, Tang Yun said. Man. Xiao Xiao shook her head helplessly and didn't say anything else. It was hard for her, but this was Tang Yun's decision. She knew that this might be the best solution for Lin Yi and Tang Yun. Don't worry. I'll get in touch with Yao Yao and Shu and help you hide it. Okay, thank you, Xiao Xiao. Tang Yun said sincerely. What are you thanking me for? I should be thanking you. If it weren't for your tolerance, I wouldn't be the Xiao Xiao I am now, Xiao Xiao said emotionally. If I wasn't Lin Yi's husband's mistress, I wouldn't be in the Ice Palace. We're family, so let's not talk like that. I can't contact Lin Yi anymore, but I can still contact you. If there's any news about Lin Yi, remember to tell me. Tang Yun said. Okay. Xiao Xiao nodded quickly. I will. I'll call Tang Yun sis first. Okay? That's all for now. We'll keep in touch. Tang Yun said. After hanging up, Tang Yun silently returned the satellite phone to the Grand Elder. This is your decision. I can't stop you. But Tang Yun, tell me, are you really ready? The Grand Elder took over the phone and asked with a serious expression. Yes, I'm ready. Tang Yun nodded heavily. Even if the path of cultivation is full of obstacles and thorns, I will face it calmly. Because he is in my heart. As long as I think of him, I will have the courage to face all difficulties. Since you have chosen to walk down this path, then persevere. The Great Elder nodded. This is just the beginning. The future will be even more difficult, but I believe that you will walk down this path, because you are the second person who has a hidden heart of ice and jade bones since the founding of the Snow Valley. Perhaps, with your body type, you do not need the medicinal liquid of the senseless grass because, you are right, the founder did not consume the medicinal liquid of the senseless grass. Thank you, Grand Elder. Tang Yun was pleasantly surprised when she heard the Grand Elder say that she didn't need to let go of her feelings anymore. No need to thank me. You chose your own path. The Grand Elder shook his head. But there is something I have to remind you in advance. Please speak, Grand Elder. Tang Yun said. Although the Heartless spell was created by the founder of the sect, she did not cultivate it to the 10th level. She was stuck at the peak of the 9th level for her entire life. The Great Elder said, perhaps this is also the reason why she did not take the senseless herb's medicinal liquid. Tang Yun paused. This Heartless Arts was created by the founder, but she did not reach the 10th level. Tang Yun just couldn't believe it. A person created an incantation, but she didn't practice it to perfection. How did she create it? The founder was a person with great wisdom and power. You can't use common sense to judge her, the Grand Elder said. The Grand Elder said, actually, it's the same logic as alchemists. Some people are very familiar with medicinal properties and can change the pill formula at will, but if you really ask him to refine the pill, he can't refine it. Could it be that the Grand Elder is talking about armchair strategists? Tang Yun asked, stunned. You could say that, but the founder wasn't an armchair strategist. If this Heartless Arts was trained to the 10th level, it would be a heaven-defying skill. The Grand Elder said seriously. Turning water into ice, turning ice into mist. All it takes is a thought. You can use the power of heaven and earth as you wish. If you train it to perfection, one water inheritor is enough. You don't even need 3. Plus, you'll be more confident when you do that thing. Sky-class island? Tang Yun's face changed. She knew from Lin Yi what Xiao Xiao had to do as an inheritor, but she didn't know the details, only the general idea. That's right, it's Sky-class island, the Grand Elder said. If you train to the 10th level, you'll have more confidence in opening Sky-class island, at least with the water element. Sky-class island, what is it? How do I open it? Tang Yun asked. I don't know. The Grand Elder shook her head. That's news from that place. They didn't say the specifics, and I only have a general idea. Maybe you'll know when you become a Sky-class late-phase peak. That place. Tang Yun paused. She didn't know what the Grand Elder was talking about. You'll get your answer in the Sky-class meeting, the Grand Elder said. If you haven't broken through by the 9th level peak, then you can consider whether or not you want to use the Forgetful Grass. So, you're saying that even if I don't use the Forgetful Grass, it won't affect me much? Tang Yun asked. That's right. There's Xiao Xiao from the Ice Palace, and that place. I heard that they've already prepared a water element inheritor. We have water, mist, and ice elements, and the 9th level peak is enough. The Grand Elder said regretfully. But the power of the 10th level is something you can't imagine. If you really make it to the 10th level, even if you don't surpass Sky Class, you'll at least become the number 1 in Sky Class, the number 1 in the world. The power of Heartless Art shocked Tang Yun. If she really made it to the 10th level, then she'd become Lin Yi's biggest helper. Didn't that mean? No, if she used the Heartless Grass, how would she remember Lin Yi? With that thought, Tang Yun gave up on that idea. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1895. Chapter 1907. Xiao Xiao's solution being the strongest in the world evidently didn't appeal to her. In her heart, she only wanted to remember that little bit of happiness that belonged only to her. That sunny day under the tree, Lin Yi personally put the engagement ring on her. He didn't remember it anymore, but it was enough that she remembered it. Seeing the gentleness and happiness in Tang Yun's eyes, the Grand Elder and Sydney shook their heads at the same time. It seemed that this huge attraction wasn't as important as a memory. All right, I won't say any more. Li, tell Elder Zhang to give Tang Yun a satellite phone so that she can contact the Ice Palace at any time. Since the Grand Elder approved of Tang Yun's choice, he didn't restrict her from contacting the outside world. Of course, this phone could only reach the Ice Palace. Xiao Xiao called Meng Yao immediately after the call with Tang Yun. She couldn't wait to find someone to share her depressed feelings with. Yushu paused as she looked at the weird number on her phone. Hello.
Shu?
It's Xiao Xiao. Xiao Xiao said.
Xiao
Xiao? Yushu cried out. Yao Yao. It's Xiao Xiao calling. Xiao Xiao. Meng Yao was surprised as well. I just mentioned Xiao Xiao and she's calling? Yeah. Yushu nodded. Xiao Xiao. Did you miss us? Of course, we're a prankster duo. Xiao Xiao said. And Yao Yao and Linny Honey too. Right, do you know about Tang Yun sis? Yushu hadn't even been happy for 2 minutes when she remembered Tang Yun's situation. Her heart sank, and her excitement waned. I know. Xiao Xiao was silent as well. Tang Yun's sis just called me. She contacted you? Yushu blinked. Why didn't she contact me? We ancient sects have our own ways of contacting each other, but her situation is a bit stricter than mine. I can call whenever I want, but she can't, Xiao Xiao said. She called me this time to talk about Lin Yi's husband. Yeah, Yao Yao, and I wanted to talk to you about Shield Bro as well. Yushu said. Oh, you're looking for me too? Xiao Xiao blinked. What about Lin Yi? What happened to him? Are you in trouble? Trouble? I did, but it's over now. Yushu shook her head. So, you did run into some trouble. Thank goodness you're fine. Xiao Xiao relaxed. So you're looking for me? It's like this. Although Shield Bro used the forgetfulness herb and forgot about Tang Yin Sis, there seems to be a gap in his memory. Yushu said. Fault? Vacancy? What do you mean? Xiao Xiao didn't quite understand what Yushu meant. Yushu sighed and didn't know how to describe it more accurately. It's like this, to be more specific. All of Shield Bro's memories of Tang Yin Sis are gone, which means that no matter if it's you, me, Yao Yao Sis, or anyone else related to Tang Yin Sis, Shield Bro doesn't remember anything, but he remembers you, me, Yao Yao Sis, and everyone else, but he doesn't remember Tang Yin Sis. Is there a problem with that? Xiao Xiao didn't think there was anything wrong with what Yushu said. Naturally, there's a problem, Yushu said. Yushu said, Shield Bro, he knows you're his small wife, so he's thinking, who's his big wife? But he doesn't remember, so he asked Yao Yao and I. Luckily we interrupted him, or else he'd ask again, and we wouldn't know how to explain. It's fine once, but if it happens too many times, it'll be a problem. I see. Isn't that easy? Yao Yao Sis always wants to be the big wife, right? Then just tell Linny honey that Yao Yao Sis is the big wife, Xiao Xiao said after some thought. Xiao Xiao said after some thought. Mengyao had taken advantage of the situation, but Xiao Xiao didn't have any thoughts of going against them right now. In order to not waste Tang Yun's efforts, Mengyao had taken advantage of the situation. It was a happy ending. No way. Yushu shook her head. I wanted to do that before, but Shield Bro doesn't remember Tang Yun, but he remembers our relationship. He almost thought I was sick last time. That's true. Xiao Xiao frowned. This was a problem. If there was a small wife, then there had to be a big wife. So who was the big wife? So, Yao Yao and I were thinking about discussing it with you. Yushu said helplessly. Let me think. Xiao Xiao thought about it carefully. After a while, she asked, You're saying that Lin E honey doesn't remember what happened between me and Tang Yin Sis, right? Yes, he doesn't remember anything like that at all. Yushu nodded. Then, he probably doesn't remember what we talked about Tang Yin Sis, right? Xiao Xiao continued. That should be it. He doesn't remember anything related to Tang Yin Sis, Yushu said. That's good. I've got an idea. Xiao Xiao said suddenly. What idea? Yushu asked quickly. Let's say that I'm the one who pestered Lin E honey to chase after him. Xiao Xiao said. Isn't that how it is? Yushu was confused. It's not the same, listen to me. Xiao Xiao said. Then you tell Lin E honey that he doesn't like me, so I asked to be the small wife, allowing him to find the big wife he likes and have a threesome with him. Ugh, will that work? Yushu hesitated. Lin E wasn't an idiot. Couldn't he see the problem? Of course. When Lin E honey took me in, it was because of Tang Yin Sis's help. He doesn't remember anything about Tang Yin Sis now, so he'll only remember that I chased him. As for how he agreed to it, he definitely doesn't remember, so there's a lot of stuff going on here. Xiao Xiao said. Doesn't that just benefit Lin E? Yushu put Mengyao's ear on the phone as well after getting the call. Mengyao heard Xiao Xiao say that she wanted Lin E to find a big wife. Didn't that mean that Lin E had another woman? And so, Mengyao gasped subconsciously. Chapter 1896. Overjoyed, but after saying that, Mengyao felt like she was being too nosy. Tang Yun and Xiao Xiao didn't have any objections. Why would she care? I don't have a choice. This is the only way I can think of. Otherwise, I really don't know how to deal with him. Xiao Xiao didn't really care about Lin E having a big wife. She was a small wife, and she had already accepted the fact that Mengyao and Yushu would become Lin E's women in the future, so she came up with this idea. Mengyao was silent. Indeed, only Xiao Xiao's method could explain why Lin E didn't have a main wife and had a main wife. Lin E remembered how Xiao Xiao had chased him, and if she'd just randomly come up with an excuse saying that she was a second wife, he probably wouldn't have believed her. He remembered that Xiao Xiao was a second wife, and it wasn't a joke. That was why he'd asked so seriously. It seems like this is the only way. We really can't think of anything else. Mengyao helplessly accepted the reality. But, Yao Yao, you can try a little harder, okay? We told him to find a big wife, but he doesn't have one yet, right? If you become his big wife, wouldn't that be fine? Xiao Xiao could tell that Meng Yao wasn't in a good mood. I don't think I can let him find someone else, Meng Yao said subconsciously, but regretted it immediately after. Why couldn't she become Lin Yi's big wife? But she'd already said it, and she couldn't go back on her words. You guys take care of it. Xiao Xiao didn't mind. All right, let's talk later. I need to go train. Time's up. Aren't you going to talk to Lin Yi? Meng Yao asked.
I
won't. Xiao Xiao hesitated before shaking her head. I promised Rock Candy that I wouldn't contact Lin Yi until he successfully makes the Ice Heart Jade Bone pill. I can't go back on my words. All right, let's keep in touch then, Meng Yao said. Can I call this number? No, this number is encrypted. You can't call in. Xiao Xiao shook her head. There's no cell signal in the Ice Palace, but only ancient sects have satellite phone numbers. The reason I'm calling you guys is because of Bingtang Sis and Aunt Qing's trust in me, but I can't tell you this number. Yeah, it's fine. We don't really have anything to do. Meng Yao stopped asking after hearing the reason. I will contact you regularly. By the way, you said you encountered some trouble just now? What's going on? Xiao Xiao remembered what Shu said about the trouble. It's actually like this. Meng Yao simply explained the trouble they'd run into, and it wasn't as scary as Yushu's. Meng Yao's words sounded a little flat, but even so, Xiao Xiao could hear the danger in it. That's scary. If Lin Yi honey didn't explode, wouldn't he be in danger? Xiao Xiao said. Yeah, but there was nothing we could do. I wanted to contact you back then, but I didn't have a way to contact you, Meng Yao said helplessly, but at least we're out of danger now. I wish I could help you guys so much, but my strength is still too low. Xiao Xiao was a weird person, but she sighed because of her strength. Bingtang Sis, maybe she'd help if I begged her. But she looked down on Lin Yi and break that 2-year promise. Meng Yao and Yushu were silent. They didn't know if the inheritor was in danger, but Tang Yun was already the inheritor, and Lin Yi had forgotten about her. But if Xiao Xiao were to become the inheritor, then Lin Yi wouldn't just let it go like that. If he sacrificed Xiao Xiao to save Lin Yi, then Lin Yi wouldn't be happy either. It was a bit of a headache. Luckily, they didn't contact Xiao Xiao, and luckily Lin Yi was out of danger by himself. But if I'd known, I'd still ask her to help. Worst case scenario, I'd just become the inheritor. If Tang Yun Sis can do it, so can I, Xiao Xiao smiled. All right, it's all over now. Let's not talk about these depressing things. Meng Yao shook her head. Xiao Xiao, go to your thing. I'll discuss with Shu how to explain this to Lin Yi the next time he brings it up. Hanging up, Meng Yao sighed softly. She had to find a big wife for Lin Yi just like that? She really didn't want to, but she had no choice. Xiao Xiao's suggestion was the only solution. Lin Yi had entered the Jade Space long ago and started practicing the second stage of the art of dragon mastery. This feeling of accumulating made Lin Yi feel like he was back in the mountains when he was practicing the first stage of the art of dragon mastery. It was the same feeling he had back then, feeling the qi flow in his body getting faster and faster under the activation of the arts, but the amount of qi he was absorbing wasn't much. More accurately speaking, Lin Yi didn't have that crazy absorption feeling he got from the first stage of the art of dragon mastery, and so his leveling speed was slowing down. But Lin Yi also noticed the positive. While the absorption speed was slower, the energy converted by the second stage of the art of dragon mastery was purer. In other words, the amount of energy Lin Yi absorbed was less, but the converted energy was more refined. This made Lin Yi's Earth Class early phase start to loosen up a little, and he was getting closer to Earth Class early phase peak. When Lin Yi noticed this, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. If it weren't for this, Lin Yi would have switched back to the first stage of the art of dragon mastery because the first stage absorbed a lot of qi. But now, it seemed like it was pointless. The energy consumption was a little too high, and the efficiency was too low. But while he was happy, he was also depressed. The happy part was that Lin Yi's strength had increased, but the depressed part was that the second stage of the art of dragon mastery seemed to be stuck at the early stage. When Lin Yi used it, he wasn't very familiar with it, and it didn't feel as smooth as the first stage. Of course, he'd only been training for a couple of days, and he knew that it wasn't wise to bite off more than he could chew. His strength had to be increased bit by bit, not all at once. Elder Jiao had already told him to take it easy and steady, so there was no point in thinking about that unrealistic speed. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.